There is a moment in the night when the house seems to be listening. The walls become quiet. The floor no longer carries the noise of the day. The chair beside the bed, the window, the little objects in the room, all appear to withdraw from their ordinary use and become witnesses to something inward. It is not yet sleep, and yet it is no longer the day. It is the border. It is the narrow bridge between the man you have been and the man you are willing to become. And I want you to understand this from the very beginning. You are not merely lying down to escape the day. You are not simply closing your eyes because the body is tired. You are standing inwardly at a threshold. One world is behind you and another world is before you. One self has followed you to this bed, carrying the tone of the day, the memory of what happened, the little disappointments, the old reactions, the familiar name by which you have called yourself. But another self is near, quiet, already complete, already waiting to be entered. Before morning comes, you do not have to remain the one who entered this night. Let that sentence move through you slowly. Before morning comes, you do not have to remain the one who entered this night. The world has taught you to think that identity is continuous, that the one who lay down at night must be the one who rises in the morning. It has taught you to carry your burdens as though they were proof of responsibility, to carry your fears as though they were proof of wisdom, to carry yesterday's evidence as though it were a sentence pronounced over your tomorrow. But I tell you, the self you carry into sleep is not fixed by fate, it is a state, and a state can be left. Sleep is not merely rest, it is a passage, and before you pass through this passage tonight, take one small outward action that mirrors your inward decision. Subscribe to this channel, not as a casual gesture, and not as something done without meaning, but as a simple declaration that you are willing to return to this teaching, to water the seed you plant tonight, and to remember again and again that consciousness is the only reality. Let that little act be your first yes to the new world you are now assuming. Let it say quietly, I am no longer wandering unconsciously through the night. I am choosing the state I will sleep in. So go ahead, subscribe now, and let even this simple movement stand as a witness that you are serious about waking as the new self, serious about leaving the old identity behind, serious about entering the reality that has already begun within you. Most men pass through this passage unknowingly. They enter it with the same old argument in the mind, the same old fear in the body, the same old conversation repeating itself beneath the surface. They bring the day to bed as though the day were sacred. They bring every harsh word, every delayed answer, every visible fact, every feeling of failure, every small humiliation, every proof that the old world is real. And then they fall asleep in the arms of the old identity and wonder why the morning greets them with the same face. But you are listening now with a different purpose. You are not here to repeat the old passage unconsciously. You are here to cross it deliberately. You are here to understand that the night is not an empty darkness. It is a womb. It receives the state you give it. It takes your feeling, your assumption, your secret name for yourself, and it seals it in the depth. Then morning comes, not as a random event, but as the outer reply to the inward state in which you slept. The world you wake into is born from the state you sleep in. Do not rush past this. The world you wake into is born from the state you sleep in. If you sleep as the one who is still waiting, you wake into a world that teaches waiting. If you sleep as the one who is still rejected, you wake into a world that seems to know your rejection. If you sleep as the one who is struggling, pursued, uncertain, unwanted, unseen, behind, or afraid, you wake into a world that mirrors that old confession, not because the world has chosen against you, but because consciousness is the only cause, and the world is its faithful expression. So tonight you are not fixing the old reality, you are entering the new one. This is where many misunderstand the law. They try to repair the old reality. They wrestle with it. They examine it. They argue with it in imagination. They say, how can I make this person change? How can I make this circumstance turn? How can I force this door to open? How can I remove this evidence? And all the while their attention remains fastened to the very state they claim to outgrow. They are still inside the old room, rearranging its furniture, while the door into the new room stands open within them. Tonight, you are not fixing the old reality, you are entering the new one. The old reality may have had its evidence today. It may have spoken loudly. It may have shown you the same face again. It may have reminded you of old limitations, old names, old fears, old patterns. It may have said, this is who you are, this is what life is, this is what always happens. But evidence belongs to the state that produced it. Evidence is not prophecy. Evidence is not master. Evidence is yesterday's consciousness made visible. If you take yesterday's evidence into sleep and call it truth, you plant it again. But if you leave it at the threshold, if you refuse to wear it as your identity, then tonight becomes the crossing. I want you to imagine, not as a forced picture, but as a gentle recognition, that there is a door within this night, not a door of wood, not a door your hand can touch, an inward door. On one side of it is the self that has been reacting, the self that wakes and remembers the problem before remembering God, the self that measures life by what the senses report, the self that says, I am this because the world has shown me this. That self is familiar. It has a voice you know. It has moods you know. It has postures in the body you know. It may even seem like home simply because it has been repeated so often. But familiarity is not truth. A prison can become familiar. A burden can become familiar. A name spoken over you for many years can become familiar. A fear rehearsed every night can become familiar. But what is familiar is not always what is true. Much of what men call reality is only memory continued. It is only yesterday repeated with feeling. It is only an old assumption, waking again and calling itself life. Tonight, you are invited to let the old name grow faint. Not your given name, not the name by which others call you in the world, but the inner name you have secretly accepted. The name that says, I am the one who cannot. The name that says, I am the one who waits. The name that says, I am the one who is always overlooked. The name that says, I am the one who almost receives, but not fully. The name that says, I am the one who must try and still remain uncertain. These are names too, invisible names, and men answer to them all day long without knowing it. But tonight you need not answer. If the old self calls you, you need not turn. If yesterday calls you by the name of fear, you need not answer. If the evidence of the day rises before you and says, look at me, I am real, you may see it and yet not bow. You may say inwardly, you are the echo of a state I am leaving, and then you pass on. You do not fight it, you do not condemn it, you do not wrestle it to the ground. You simply cease to be the one who belongs to it. This is a great secret. You do not leave the old world by hating it, you leave it by outgrowing the state that gives it life. A man who hates his old world is often still bound to it, for hatred is attention, and attention is life. But a man who has moved into a new state becomes strangely quiet toward the old. He no longer needs to argue with it, he no longer needs to prove it false. He has found something truer within himself. Now, as the night surrounds you, allow the room to become a kind of station between worlds. The day has ended. Its incidents are no longer demanding your reaction. The conversations have lost their sharpness. The outer world is fading from authority. The senses, which were so loud in the daylight, are beginning to soften. The eyes are closed or heavy. The body is nearer to stillness. The mind is not yet asleep, but it is becoming less proud, less rigid, less determined to defend the old facts. This is the hour when you may change your allegiance. Not tomorrow, after the world proves something. Not next week, after conditions become gentle. Not after a sign is given. Here, now, in the unseen chamber of consciousness, you may change your allegiance from the old reality to the new. And I tell you, the change of allegiance is the beginning of the change of world. For no man can long live in a world to which he no longer gives inner loyalty. Ask yourself softly, not with effort, not with strain, but as one asking in the quiet of his own heart, who went through this day. Was it the old self? Was it the one who reacted before assuming? Was it the one who looked at the world and felt defined by it? Was it the one who carried old fears into every new moment? If so, do not condemn him. Do not despise him. He was a state. He was a garment. He was a role played so often it seemed to be your nature. But he is not your eternal being. You are the one who can observe him. And because you can observe him, you are not bound to remain him. That is freedom. The moment you can see the old self as a state, you have already begun to separate from it. You are no longer asleep inside it. You are awake enough to leave it. And tonight, before sleep takes you, I want you to feel that separation gently, not dramatically, not with excitement, not with a great emotional storm, simply as a quiet inward knowing. I have worn that state long enough. The day belonged to the old self. Perhaps it did, Perhaps the old self reacted. Perhaps the old self feared. Perhaps the old self checked, worried, remembered, tightened, or doubted. Let that be so. The day is ending. The old self had the day, but the night belongs to imagination. And imagination is not bound by the day. Imagination is God in action. Imagination is the power that calls the imagination is the true body of your future world. So do not drag the day across the threshold. Do not bring yesterday's evidence into the holy interval of sleep as though it had the right to command you. Do not bring old conversations and rehearse them in the dark. Do not bring old failures and place them upon the pillow beside you. Do not bring the faces of those who misunderstood you, nor the words that wounded you, nor the disappointments that tried to name you. Let them remain in the world to which they belong. They are not companions for the new reality. The new reality requires a new sleeper. That may sound strange, but it is true. The one who wakes in a new world is the one who first sleeps in a new state. You do not wake differently by accident. You wake differently because something in the depths has been accepted. You wake with a new quietness, a new tone, a new inner atmosphere, because during the night you cease to be loyal to the old assumption. You pass through the gate of sleep wearing another name. And this name is not given by the world. The world may call you by the old evidence. It may point to what has been. It may say, look, nothing has changed, but the new name is given inwardly. It is the name of the fulfilled state. It is the name of one who already belongs to the new reality. It is not shouted. It is known. It is not forced. It is accepted. It is not a mask. It is a discovery. I am. That is the name behind all names. And whatever you join to I am, you begin to become. If you say inwardly, I am trapped, you enter the world of trapped. If you say, I am waiting, you enter the world of waiting. If you say, I am not chosen, you enter the world of not chosen. But if tonight, gently, in the secret place, you say, I am the one who already belongs to the new reality, then you have turned the key. You have not yet forced the outer door. You have opened the inner one. And all outer doors follow inner openings. Sleep is not merely rest. It is a passage. Do you understand now why the night matters? It is not empty time. It is not a pause in creation. It is one of the deepest creative acts of your day. For when you sleep, the conscious mind lays down its weapons. The reasoning mind, which argues with every new possibility, grows dim. The senses withdraw their testimony. And the deeper mind, the faithful servant, receives what you have accepted as true. What will you give it tonight? Will you give it the old story again? Will you give it the same complaint, the same fear, the same inward speech, the same identity? Or will you give it a new state? Will you give it the feeling that you are no longer the one who entered this night? Will you give it the quiet certainty that the old world is fading because the old self is no longer being fed? Before morning comes, you do not have to remain the one who entered this night. Let this become more than a sentence. Let it become a doorway. The one who entered this night may have been tired. Let him be tired. The one who entered this night may have been afraid. Let him be afraid. The one who entered this night may have carried evidence of delay, loss, uncertainty, or disappointment. Let him have carried it. But you are not required to carry it into the deep. You are not required to make it your seed. You are not required to sleep as the same state that suffered the day. There is a new self, and it is not far away. It is not hidden in years. It is not waiting at the end of a long road. It is as near as assumption. It is as near as the feeling you would have if the new reality were already yours. It is as near as the breath that softens when the struggle ends. It is as near as the inward phrase, quietly accepted, I am already there, not trying to arrive, already there, not begging to be changed, already changed within, not hoping the world will permit me, already accepted by consciousness. Tonight, you are not fixing the old reality. You are entering the new one. And because you are entering the new one, the old does not need your anger. It does not need your explanation. It does not need one more hour of mental labor. It has had enough of your life. It has had enough of your attention. Let it fade as the room fades when sleep approaches. Let it become distant. Let its voices become muffled. Let yesterday's name lose its authority. The night is deepening now. Even if you are not yet asleep, something in you can begin to cross. You may still be in the same bed. You may still be in the same room. The same window may be near you. The same silence may surround you, but inwardly you are not in the same place. You are moving from reaction into assumption, from memory into imagination, from the old evidence into the new state. This is how realities change. Not first by noise, not first by outer movement, not first by dramatic signs. They change when the inhabitant changes. A world is a house built around a state. Change the state, and the house must be rebuilt. Change the inner occupant, and the rooms of life begin to rearrange. The world has no choice, for it is yourself pushed out. So tonight, let the old occupant rest from his struggle. Let the one who has been trying to hold everything together lay down his tools. Let the one who has been watching the old world for permission close his eyes. Let the one who has been measuring progress by appearances become quiet. He is not needed for this crossing. A different one enters now, the one who already belongs, the one who does not ask the old world for identity, the one who does not carry yesterday's evidence as law, the one who knows that morning is not master, but mirror, the one who understands that the world you wake into is born from the state you sleep in. Feel the beauty of this. Morning is not coming to judge you. Morning is coming to reflect you. Dawn is not an authority over consciousness. Dawn is a servant. It will take its instruction from the state you impress upon the deep, and tonight you may give it a new instruction. You may sleep as one who is already within the new reality, not as a thought only, not as a phrase repeated mechanically, but as an atmosphere, as a quiet assumption, as a softened identity, as a gentle inner shift that says without strain, I no longer belong to the old world. Let that be enough for now. You do not need to see every detail of the new reality at once. You do not need to know every bridge, every movement, every conversation, every event that will unfold. The seed does not need to see the harvest in order to grow. It needs only to be planted. And tonight, the seed is your state. The soil is sleep. The water is feeling. The law is certain. Before morning comes, you do not have to remain the one who entered this night. Sleep is not merely rest. It is a passage. Tonight you are not fixing the old reality. You are entering the new one. The world you wake into is born from the state you sleep in. Let these words descend slowly now. Let them move beneath the mind that argues. Let them touch the deeper listener within you, the one who knows truth before reason approves it, the one who has always sensed that life could be otherwise, the one who has been waiting not for permission but for recognition. You are not the old self trying to become new. You are the new self ceasing to believe in the old. This is the beginning. This is the crossing. This is the mystery of night. And before sleep receives you completely, decide inwardly, gently, without strain, I will not carry yesterday's name into tomorrow. I will not sleep inside the old evidence. I will not give the deep mind the same old command. I enter the new reality now, in consciousness, where every world begins. And as the body grows heavier, as the room grows softer, as the day loses its grip, feel that you are already passing through, not by effort, not by force, but by assumption. The old world is behind you as a state no longer chosen. The new world is before you as a state now entered. And morning, faithful morning, will come to meet the one you become in sleep. Now, having crossed the first threshold of the night, I want you to see with great tenderness what it is you are leaving behind. For no man can consciously enter a new reality while still believing the old one to be a prison made of stone. He must first understand what the old reality is. He must see that it is not the final decree of life. It is not a sentence written by some power outside himself. It is not a permanent world into which he has been placed without escape. Much of what a man calls his reality is only a state repeated until it feels solid. What you call reality may only be a state repeated until it feels solid. Let that move through you slowly. What you call reality may only be a state repeated until it feels solid. It feels solid because you have met it every morning. It feels real because it has answered you in familiar ways. It feels unavoidable because your body recognizes it before your mind has even named it. You wake, and before the light has fully entered the room, before the day has truly begun, the old state rises like a servant that has been waiting beside the bed. It says, remember who you are. Remember what troubles you. Remember what has not changed. Remember what you fear. And because you have heard it so often, you do not question it. You put it on. The same thoughts return. The same expectations return. The same little tightening in the body returns. The same private conversation begins again. A man wakes, and instead of waking into life, he wakes into memory. He wakes into yesterday's interpretation. He wakes into the same invisible garment and calls it himself. He does not say, I am entering a state. He says, this is my life. He does not say, I am wearing an assumption. He says, this is reality. And because he believes it to be reality, he repeats it with loyalty. A repeated state becomes a familiar world. This is the great mystery hidden beneath ordinary days. A state, repeated often enough, begins to wear the face of fact. If a man repeatedly feels himself overlooked, the world begins to look like a world of rejection. If he repeatedly feels himself pursued by trouble, the world begins to look like a world of danger. If he repeatedly feels himself behind, the world begins to look like a world that always demands more than he has. If he repeatedly feels himself unloved, life seems to speak in the language of neglect. And then he says, look, the world proves it. But the world is only confirming the state he has occupied. I do not say this to accuse you, I say it to free you. For if the old world were truly fixed, if it were truly independent of consciousness, if it were truly a power outside you, then you would be helpless. But if the old world is a state repeated, if it is an assumption worn so often that it feels natural, then it can be changed, it can be removed, it can be outgrown, it can be replaced by another state, worn until it too becomes natural. You are not imprisoned by reality, you are identified with a state. That is the difference between bondage and freedom. The man who believes he is imprisoned by reality looks outward and sees only walls. The man who sees that he is identified with a state looks inward and finds the door. He no longer asks the wall to move first. He changes the one who sees the wall. He no longer asks the reflection to become kind while he remains inwardly wounded. He changes the face. He no longer begs the shadow to alter its shape. He changes the body that casts it. You are not imprisoned by reality. You are identified with a state. Consider how silently this identification takes place. No one wakes in the morning and says with full awareness, today I choose to be the old self again. No one deliberately says, today I shall rehearse the same limitation and call it mine. No one consciously decides, today I shall feel as though nothing changes. And yet without awareness, it happens. The familiar state is chosen by habit. The old garment is put on because it lies nearest to the hand. The mind reaches for what it has worn before. A man opens his eyes and immediately remembers a problem. That memory brings a feeling. That feeling brings an expectation. That expectation shapes his attention. He looks through the world expecting the old confirmation. And because consciousness selects, emphasizes, and organizes experience according to state, he finds what corresponds to that expectation. Then he says, I knew it. But what did he know? He knew only the world that belongs to the state he entered. This is why the old world survives. The old world survives because the old self keeps waking in it. Let this be heard deeply. The old world survives because the old self keeps waking in it. It is not merely the world continuing, it is the self continuing. It is not merely circumstance repeating, it is consciousness returning to the same inner dwelling. If the old self wakes and looks through the old eyes, speaks the old words, expects the old treatment, fears the old ending, and feels the old identity, then the old world has been given another day of life. The old world does not need you to love it, it only needs you to continue identifying with it. You may complain about it and still feed it. You may resist it and still remain inside it. You may curse it and still belong to it. For attention with feeling is life. A man who hates his limitation may still be deeply married to it if he carries it in imagination. He may say, I want to escape, while inwardly repeating the very state from which he longs to be free. So tonight, as you listen, I want you to feel a gentle separation from the old pattern. Do not fight it. Do not condemn yourself for having repeated it. Simply see it. See how it has worked. See how the same thought in the morning became the same mood. See how the same mood became the same expectation. See how the same expectation became the same reaction. See how the same reaction gave the world the same meaning. See how the same meaning hardened into what you called reality. And then ask yourself softly, what if this was never reality itself? What if this was only a state I learned to repeat? There is freedom in that question. What if the heaviness you took as truth was only a state? What if the fear that greeted you in the morning was only a state? What if the old expectation of disappointment was only a state? What if the feeling of being behind, unseen, unwanted, unable, or delayed was only a state? What if it was never your true identity, but only a garment worn so often that you forgot you were wearing it? A garment does not become your body because you wear it many times. A role does not become your soul because you play it often. A room does not become the whole world because you have lived in it long. And a state does not become eternal truth because you have slept in it for years. It becomes familiar, it becomes persuasive, it becomes automatic, but it does not become final. A repeated state becomes a familiar world, but familiar is not final. You may have repeated a state of struggle until struggle felt like the atmosphere of life. You may have repeated a state of waiting until waiting felt natural. You may have repeated a state of rejection until rejection seemed to meet you everywhere. You may have repeated a state of uncertainty until peace seemed foreign. You may have repeated a state of lack until supply felt like something that belonged to other people. But repetition is not destiny. Repetition is only practice, and what has been practiced can be replaced by another practice. Now, I do not ask you to deny that you have seen certain things. I do not ask you to pretend that yesterday did not occur. I do not ask you to say that the old world has never appeared. I ask you to understand what it is. It is appearance. It is shadow. It is the outpicturing of a state. It is consciousness made visible. And if consciousness made it visible, consciousness can make another visible. The world that appears before you is not the beginning of creation. It is the end of a former state. It is yesterday's inward life expressed outwardly. The senses show you what has been accepted. They do not show you what must be accepted now. Therefore, when you wake and the old evidence appears, do not treat it as a command. Treat it as an echo. An echo may be heard, but it has no authority to decide what you speak next. You are not imprisoned by reality. You are identified with a state, and tonight identification can change. I want you to notice how a state speaks. It does not always speak loudly. It often speaks in little sentences that pass through the mind so quickly you call them natural. This always happens to me. People like me do not receive that. It is too late. It never works. I knew this would happen. I must prepare for disappointment. Nothing really changes. These sentences may seem like thoughts, but they are more than thoughts. They are the language of a state. They are the old self narrating the old world into another day. Your inner speech is one of the ways the state remains alive. A man does not need to shout his identity. He whispers it all day within himself. He whispers it when he sees a letter. He whispers it when someone is silent. He whispers it when a door seems slow to open. He whispers it when the body feels tired. He whispers it when he thinks of tomorrow. And the whisper becomes his world, because the whisper is accepted as true. So if you want to wake inside a new reality, you must begin to recognize the speech of the old one. Not to fight it, not to fear it, not to say, I have ruined everything by thinking this thought. No, thoughts may pass, old phrases may rise, but you must no longer give them your name. You must no longer say, this is me. You must see them as remnants of a state you are leaving. If the old thought says, nothing changes, you may answer quietly, that belonged to the old state. If the old feeling says, I am still the same, you may answer quietly, that is only the familiar garment. If the old evidence says, look, the world has not moved, you may answer quietly, you are yesterday's shadow. I am entering a new state. This is not argument, this is remembrance. You are remembering who the cause is. You are remembering that the outer world follows the inner state. You are remembering that the old reality only survives when the old self wakes in it and accepts it again as home. The old world survives because the old self keeps waking in it. Then let us become very still and ask, who is the old self? The old self is not your true being. The old self is a pattern of identification. It is the one who has learned to answer to certain feelings. It is the one who takes old evidence personally. It is the one who wakes and says, I am still here. It is the one who expects yesterday to continue. It is the one who feels safer in familiar suffering than in unfamiliar freedom. It is the one who would rather know disappointment than risk assuming fulfillment. Do not hate him. Do not make war with him. He came into being through repetition. He survived because you returned to him. He felt real because you occupied him. But he is not your final self. He is not the I am itself. He is only one arrangement of consciousness, and consciousness, being free, can rearrange itself. This is what I came to teach. You are not a victim of fixed conditions. You are consciousness occupying states, and every state has its own world. Remain in one state, and you remain in the corresponding world. Move into another state, and the world must, in its own appointed way, alter to express the new occupancy. The difficulty is that the old state feels natural, it has been rehearsed, it has habits in the body, it has familiar sensations, it may have a certain heaviness in the chest, a certain tightness in the stomach, a certain dull expectation in the morning, a certain look in the eyes, a certain way of interpreting silence, delay or uncertainty. The state is not merely mental, it is embodied. It has become a climate, but climate can change. A winter day may seem to cover the whole earth, but spring is not destroyed by winter. It is hidden until its appointed movement. So too the new reality may seem hidden beneath the old state, but it is not absent. It is available as another state of consciousness. You do not manufacture it by force, you enter it by assumption. And as you enter it again and again, it becomes familiar. As it becomes familiar, it becomes natural. And as it becomes natural, this is why repetition is not your enemy. Unconscious repetition built the old world. Conscious repetition will establish the new. You have repeated fear. Now you may repeat fulfillment. You have repeated delay. Now you may repeat acceptance. You have repeated old inner speech. Now you may speak inwardly from the new state. You have slept in the old identity. Now you may sleep in the new. A repeated state becomes a familiar world. So let the new state, let it be repeated gently, not mechanically. Let it be repeated as feeling. Let it be repeated at night, when the mind softens. Let it be repeated upon waking, before the old world has been allowed to name you. Let it be repeated in small inward returns throughout the day, not with strain, not with desperation, but with quiet loyalty. If the old state was built by loyalty, the new state will be built by loyalty too. But now your loyalty is conscious. And I want you to understand something comforting. You do not need to change every fact tonight. You do not need to repair every appearance. You do not need to explain how the entire world will rearrange. You need only cease to believe that the old state is your identity. You need only begin the separation. You need only feel, even slightly, that what you called reality may have been only a state repeated until it felt solid. The moment that is seen, the solidity begins to loosen. What once seemed like a wall becomes a habit. What seemed like fate becomes a garment. What seemed like truth becomes a story. What seemed like prison becomes identification. And identification can change. You are not imprisoned by reality. You are identified with a state. Now, as these words move through the quiet of the night, notice the old world gently losing its absolute authority. It may still appear in memory. It may still have images. It may still have arguments. But something in you is beginning to see through it. Something in you is beginning to say, this is not the whole of me. This is not the whole of life. This is a state I have known, not a world I must remain in. That recognition is already a doorway. The old self wants you to believe that because you thought the same thought yesterday, you must think it tomorrow. It wants you to believe that because you reacted one way for many years, you must always react that way. It wants you to believe that because life has worn one face, it cannot wear another. But the law says otherwise. The law says that consciousness is the cause, and consciousness can move. The law says that no state is permanent unless you remain in it. The law says that every assumption persisted in hardens into fact. Then let your assumption tonight be different. Let it not be the old assumption of sameness. Let it not be the old assumption of repetition. Let it not be the old assumption that tomorrow must resemble today. Let it be the quiet assumption, I am not the old state. I am not bound to the old world. I can enter a new reality because reality follows the state I occupy. Do not force this. Let it settle. Perhaps the old state has been very convincing. That is all right. It was repeated often. But now you know the secret of its strength. It did not become strong because it was true. It became strong because it was and what has been accepted can be unaccepted. What has been worn can be removed. What has been repeated can be replaced. What has been identified with can be observed, and what can be observed can be left. There is a strange peace that comes when you stop calling the old state yourself. You may notice it now, even faintly, a little distance, a little space, a little loosening. The old thought may come, but it is no longer entirely you. The old expectation may speak, but its voice is not as holy as it once seemed. This little space is the beginning of freedom. For years, men try to change their lives while remaining the same inner man. They try to change the world while carrying the same state into every room. They want new treatment while expecting old rejection. They want new supply while feeling old lack. They want new peace while rehearsing old conflict. And when the new world does not appear, they say but the law has not failed. The old state was preserved. Tonight, we do not preserve it. Tonight, we see it for what it is: a state, a garment, a repeated feeling, a familiar world. And seeing it, we no longer need to bow before it. Now let the words become slower within you. The old reality is only a state repeated. The old reality is only a state repeated. The old reality is only a state repeated. The old reality is only a state, and if it was repeated into solidity, another state can be repeated into naturalness. A new assumption can become familiar. A new inner speech can become normal. A new self can wake. A new world can answer. The old world survives because the old self keeps waking in it. But what if the old self does not wake tomorrow? What if, before sleep fully takes you, you place another self in the deep? What if tonight you refuse to carry yesterday's name forward? What if the morning meets someone who does not immediately agree with the old evidence? What if the first inward movement tomorrow is not fear, but remembrance? What if you wake not as the one who repeats, but as the one who chooses? Do you feel the door opening? Not outwardly yet, inwardly, where all doors begin. You are not imprisoned by reality, you are identified with a state. And if you are identified with a state, then you may become identified with another. You may identify with the one who is chosen. You may identify with the one who is free. You may identify with the one who is supplied. You may identify with the one who is loved. You may identify with the one who is established, calm, confident, blessed, secure, and already living from the new reality. Not later, not after the world agrees. Now, in consciousness, this is the sacred privilege of night. The old state is tired. The day has ended. The senses are dimming. The arguments of the world are weaker now. And in this softened hour, the deeper you is listening. Give it a new name. Give it a new feeling. Give it a new reality to grow into while the body rests. Let the old repeated state lose its claim. Let the familiar world become less final. Let the garment loosen at the shoulders. Let the identity you have worn begin to slip away. You need not tear it. You need not burn it. You need not curse it. Simply stop fastening it again. Tonight, you are learning the difference between reality and state. Reality says, I am fixed. State says, I am occupied. Reality says, you cannot leave. State says, move. Reality says, this is who you are. State says, this is what you have worn. And I tell you, what you have worn, you may remove. Now rest in this knowing. The old life is changeable because the old life is not independent of consciousness. The old life is changeable because the old life has been fed by the old state. The old life is changeable because you are not the state itself, but the one who moves through states. The old life is changeable because imagination is the only reality, and imagination tonight is free to assume differently. So, as you move nearer to sleep, let this truth lie down with you. What I called reality may have only been a state repeated until it felt solid. And if that is so, I am free to stop repeating it. I am free to stop waking in it. I am free to stop giving it my name. I am free to enter another state and let that state become my world. The same thoughts need not greet you tomorrow. The same expectations need not rise. The same reactions need not command the body. The same disappointments need not be anticipated. The same inner speech need not begin again. The old self does not have to wake. The old world does not have to be fed. Something new can rise from the night. A new state, a new name, a new inner atmosphere, a new reality. And as the room grows quieter, as the body becomes heavier, as the mind becomes softer, let the old world lose its final word. It was repeated, it was believed, it was worn, but it was not eternal. Tonight, another state is being chosen, and what is chosen in consciousness, accepted in feeling, and carried into sleep, must one day stand. Now, as you begin to see that the old reality is not a prison of stone, but a state repeated, I want to take you one step deeper. For the moment a man discovers that his world is changeable, he often makes one final mistake. He turns toward the old world and begins to fight it. He thinks, now I must defeat it. Now I must push it away. Now I must argue with it, resist it, overcome it, prove it false, and in that very movement he gives the old world another breath of life. You do not escape a reality by fighting its shadows. Let those words be received quietly. You do not escape a reality by fighting its shadows. If a shadow falls upon the wall, and you dislike its shape, you do not take a rod and strike the wall. You do not plead with the shadow to become beautiful. You do not exhaust yourself trying to drag the shadow into another form. You turn to the object that casts it. You turn to the light. The shadow is powerless in itself. It can only follow. So it is with the world you have called reality. The events, the faces, the letters, the delays, the words spoken by others, the appearances that seem so final, these are not the cause, they are the shadow. And if you spend the night fighting the shadow, you remain related to the state that casts it. You remain inwardly occupied with the old reality. You are still saying, this is real enough to threaten me, this is powerful enough to demand my struggle. This is something outside me that I must conquer. And that confession keeps you bound. The old world feeds on your reaction to it. This is one of the most subtle truths in the law. The old world does not need your agreement in words. It only needs your emotional reaction. It does not need you to love it. It only needs you to fear it. It does not need you to praise it. It only needs you to keep answering when it calls. Every time the old appearance rises and you react as the old self, you enter the old state again. Every time the old evidence appears and you become frightened, angry, desperate, or wounded in the same familiar way, you have said inwardly, I still belong here. And the world, faithful as ever, answers, yes, you do. Now I know that this is not what men have been taught. They have been taught that to change life, they must struggle with life. They have been taught that if something appears contrary to their wish, they must tense against it, they must explain it, defend against it, justify themselves before it, persuade it, chase it, wrestle it. And because this habit is so old, it feels almost noble. A man says, I am fighting for my life. But very often, he is only keeping alive the state from which his life must be freed. I am not telling you to become indifferent in the shallow sense. I am not telling you to be weak. I am not telling you to sit helplessly beneath circumstance. I am telling you something far more powerful. I am telling you that reaction is not authority. Reaction is slavery to appearance. The one who reacts has already accepted the thing reacted to as cause. He has bowed inwardly before it, and then tries to defeat what he has secretly enthroned. But consciousness is the only cause. Therefore, if you would change the world, do not begin by fighting the world. Begin by withdrawing your belief from the state that produced it. Leave the old reality by withdrawing your belief from it. This withdrawal is not denial with a frightened heart. It is not pretending that nothing has appeared. It is not closing your eyes like a child and hoping the thing will vanish. No, it is the calm knowledge that what appears is effect, and effect has no power to create unless you re-enter the state that gave it life. You may see an old fact without worshipping it. You may hear an old word without becoming the old self. You may meet an old pattern without agreeing to live inside it. That is withdrawal. To withdraw belief is to remove the inner substance from the appearance. The appearance may still stand for a while, just as a branch may remain green for a little while after it has been cut from the root. But if the root is no longer fed, the branch cannot live. In the same way, the old reality may appear for a while as you enter a new state. Do not be disturbed by this. It is only the remainder of a former assumption. Do not run back to feed it with fear. Do not give it your life again by reacting as though it were final. The mirror cannot move before the face. This is simple, yet if you understand it, it will save you from years of effort. The mirror cannot move before the face. You stand before a mirror, and you see a frown. You do not say, I shall smile when the mirror smiles first. You do not wait for the reflection to give you permission. You smile, and the mirror follows. If you insist that the mirror must go first, you will stand there forever, trapped in an argument with glass. And yet this is how most men live. They say, when the world changes, I will feel free. They say, when the answer comes, I will relax. They say, when the person behaves differently, I will feel chosen. They say, when the outer condition moves, I will believe. But this is asking the mirror to move before the face. It cannot. The outer world reflects the inner state. The reflection follows. It does not lead. So tonight, do not ask the mirror to prove the new reality before you enter it. Enter it first. Let the face change first. Let the state change first. Let the inner posture change first. Then the reflection must, in its own appointed way, conform. The mirror cannot move before the face. If this seems difficult, it is only because the senses are persuasive. The senses say, look at this, listen to this, touch this, this is what is real, and the untrained mind bows to them. But I tell you, the senses show you the shadow of previous states. They are witnesses of what has been accepted, not masters of what must now be accepted. If you give them the authority to define you, you remain in yesterday. If you understand them as echoes, you become free to speak a new word. This is why fighting appearances is so exhausting. The appearance is always late. It is the report of a state already occupied. If you fight the report, you remain in conversation with the past. You are like a man receiving an old letter and shouting at the paper as though the paper were writing itself. The letter may tell you what was once written, but it cannot decide what you write now. The old reality is such a letter. It tells you what you once accepted. It tells you what state has been repeated. It tells you what garment has been worn, but it does not tell you what you must now be. That power belongs to consciousness, here, now, in the secret place. Now let me speak of overthinking. For many who listen in the night do not call it fighting. They call it understanding. They call it preparation. They call it trying to make sense of things. But very often, overthinking is only resistance in a more respectable garment. The mind circles the old reality, again and again, asking why it happened, how it happened, what it means, what it proves, what must be done, what might go wrong, what others think, what tomorrow will bring. And each circle draws the soul tighter around the old state. You cannot think your way out of an old reality while thinking from the old self. You may produce many explanations, many plans, many arguments, but if the thinker remains the old self, the thoughts will be old thoughts wearing new words. The mind can become a spinning wheel that never moves the carriage. It turns and turns and turns, and the man believes he is progressing because there is motion, but he is only exhausting himself in place. The true movement is inward. It is the shift from being the one who reacts to being the one who assumes. It is the shift from asking the old world what is true to telling consciousness what is true. It is the shift from being impressed by appearance to impressing the deep with a new state. This is not overthinking. This is creation. And pleading is another form of fighting. A man pleads with life, with God, with people, with circumstances, because he feels the good is outside him. He feels the answer must be granted from elsewhere. He feels he is standing at a closed door, hoping someone on the other side will hear his cry. But the kingdom is within. The door is within. The one who pleads still feels separate from what he seeks. He has not yet entered the state of having received. Do not plead with the old reality. Do not kneel before shadows. Do not beg the mirror. Go within and assume. Prayer, rightly understood, is not begging, it is appropriation. It is the inward acceptance of the state you would occupy, were your world already transformed. And when that state is accepted, prayer is fulfilled, whether or not the shadow has yet caught up. Now perhaps you say, but Neville, the old reality appears so strong. Yes, it appears strong because it has been fed with belief. It has been repeated. It has been reacted to. It has been slept in. It has been spoken from. It has been expected. It has had your attention, your emotion, and anything so nourished will appear strong. But its strength is borrowed. It has no creative power of its own. It stands because consciousness has stood within it. Change the occupancy, and the structure must change. The old world feeds on your reaction to it. So what do you do when the old world calls? You do not fight. You withdraw. You do not collapse. You remember. You do not explain yourself to the appearance. You return to the state. If an old fear rises, you do not say, this fear proves I have failed. You say, this fear belongs to the old self. If an old pattern appears, you do not say, nothing has changed. You say, this is the remainder of a state I am no longer feeding. If an old memory speaks, you do not argue with it all night. You say, you are not my name. This is not passive. It is the most radical act a man can perform. For the entire old world depends upon his continued belief, and he quietly removes it. Leave the old reality by withdrawing your belief from it. Feel how different that is from fighting. Fighting says, this thing has power, and I must overcome it. Withdrawal says, this thing has no power except the power I lend it by belief. Fighting keeps attention bound to the old. Withdrawal turns attention toward the new. Fighting creates more inner noise. Withdrawal creates space. Fighting exhausts the body. Withdrawal lets the body soften. Fighting confesses, I am threatened. Withdrawal declares, I am free to occupy another state. And because this video is meant to follow you towards sleep, I want the body itself to begin learning the difference. Notice what fighting feels like. Even if you are lying still, fighting has a shape in the body. It tightens the jaw, it lifts the shoulders, it narrows the breath, it pulls the mind forward. It makes the eyes tense behind the lids. It fills the chest with argument. It says, I must solve, I must force, I must defend, I must make the old world change. Now notice what withdrawal feels like. The jaw begins to loosen, the shoulders descend, the breath deepens, the stomach softens, the hands no longer need to grasp, the mind no longer chases every thought. Something in you says, I do not need to fight shadows tonight. I turn toward cause. I turn toward the new state. This softening is not weakness. It is the body agreeing that you are no longer at war with effects. You do not escape a reality by fighting its shadows. Let this sentence become gentle medicine. You do not escape a reality by fighting its shadows. You escape by no longer being the one who belongs to them. You escape by becoming inwardly absent from the state that produced them. You escape by transferring your feeling of reality from the old world to the new. The old world cannot hold the man who has ceased to identify with it. This is why I have said, again and again, there is no one to change but self, not because others do not appear, not because circumstances do not seem to stand before you, but because the self you occupy determines the world you meet. Try to change 100 people while remaining the old self, and the old drama will continue with new names. Change self, and people, events, and conditions begin to rearrange themselves as though they had received a new instruction. They have. The instruction is your state. Now I want you to see how subtly the old reality asks for reaction. It may appear as a memory. Suddenly, in the quiet, you remember what was said, what was done, what failed, what disappointed you. The old mind invites you to rehearse it. It says, think of this again, feel this again. Let us prepare for tomorrow by reliving yesterday. But if you accept the invitation, you have gone back into the old room. You may still be lying in bed, but inwardly you are walking through yesterday's house. Tonight, refuse the invitation gently. Do not slam the door. Do not fight the memory. Simply do not follow. Let the memory pass like a carriage outside the window. You hear it, perhaps, but you do not rise and climb into it. You remain where you are, in the chosen state, in the new reality, in the inward place where the old scene no longer defines you. Or perhaps the old reality appears as a prediction. The mind says, tomorrow will be the same. They will respond the same way. The letter will bring the same news. The door will remain closed. The burden will remain. This, too, is an invitation. It is the old state trying to extend itself into morning. If you believe it, you plant it. If you react to it, you feed it. But if you withdraw belief, the prediction loses authority. You may say softly, that is the old world speaking. I do not take instruction from it tonight. Then return to the new state. Do you see how simple this is? Not easy at first, because the habit is old, but simple. The old world offers a thought. You do not marry it. The old world offers a feeling. You do not make it identity. The old world offers evidence. You do not. The old world offers fear. You do not sleep in it. You turn inward and occupy another state. The mirror cannot move before the face. Let the face change. Let the inner expression change. Let consciousness wear a new look tonight. If the reflection still appears old for a moment, do not panic. A mirror cannot show the new face until the new face is held before it. Hold it. Remain in it. Let the state become natural. Let the old reflection lose its ability to command you. The reflection is not the judge. Consciousness is the cause. Now I want to give you an image to carry into the night. Imagine that the old reality is a room filled with echoes. Every echo is familiar. One says, you cannot. Another says, it is too late. Another says, this is always how it is. Another says, you are still the same. For many years, perhaps, you have answered those echoes. You have explained yourself to them. You have argued with them. You have tried to silence them by shouting louder. But tonight you notice something. There is a door. And the door does not open by defeating the echoes. It opens when you stop believing they are your voice. You walk out, not because the echoes agree, not because they apologize, not because they become silent first. You walk out because they no longer have your identity. That is how you leave an old reality. Not by making every old appearance behave, not by receiving permission from the past, not by winning an argument with the shadow. You leave by withdrawing belief. Leave the old reality by withdrawing your belief from it. Now as you lie there, let the old need to fight grow tired. Let it come to rest. You do not need to spend this sacred interval of night in mental combat. You do not need to prove the new reality to the old one. You do not need to convince yesterday. You do not need to persuade memory. You do not need to make the senses bless your assumption before you assume it. The senses are servants of former states. Let them be. They will report what they must report until the new state is sufficiently impressed. But you are not required to bow before the report. You are free to become still and choose. This stillness is the beginning of power, not the stillness of defeat, but the stillness of one who understands cause. A man who understands cause no longer wastes his strength beating effects. He becomes quiet because he knows where to move. He moves within. He assumes. He accepts. He feels himself to be already in the new reality, and then he lets the old reality starve from lack of belief. The old world feeds on your reaction to it. So do not feed it tonight. If a thought comes, let it pass. If an old fear comes, let it pass. If the body remembers the old tension, soften it. If yesterday calls your name, do not answer. You are not required to fight. You are required to awaken. Awaken to the fact that the shadow has no power of its own. Awaken to the fact that the mirror waits upon the face. Awaken to the fact that what you have been resisting is only the outpicturing of a state. Awaken to the fact that you can enter another state now, not after the world changes, but before it changes. This is the order of creation. First consciousness, then reflection. First state, then world. First assumption, then evidence. First the invisible, then the visible. And the world has trained you to reverse it. It has said, see first, then believe. But the law says, believe first, and you will see. The world has said, change the reflection, then the face can smile. But the law says, let the face smile, and the mirror will obey. The mirror cannot move before the face. Now I want you to feel the relief in this. You no longer need to force every appearance into obedience. Tonight, you no longer need to settle every question before resting. You no longer need to chase every fear to its end. You no longer need to hold a trial in your mind against the old reality. The case is over. The old reality was effect. The cause is being changed now. This means you can rest, not because nothing matters, but because consciousness matters most. Not because the new reality is impossible, but because it is entered inwardly first. Not because you are powerless, but because your power has been withdrawn from the wrong place and brought back to its source. Bring it back now. Bring back the power you gave to the old evidence. Bring back the power you gave to old words. Bring back the power you gave to old disappointments. Bring back the power you gave to old reactions. Bring it all back into the I am. For I am is the face before the mirror. I am is the light before the shadow. I am is the inner cause before the outer event. And whatever you now dare to feel yourself to be, that you begin to become. So do not say, I will be free when the old world lets me go. Say, I am free within, and the old world must lose its hold. Do not say, I will believe when the evidence changes. Say, I believe, and evidence must change. Do not say, I will rest when life becomes gentle. Say, I rest in the new state, and life must conform. This is how the battle ends, not by victory over shadows, but by awakening from the need to fight them. Now, let the night deepen around this understanding. Let the body receive it. Let the mind become less interested in old arguments. Let the heart stop preparing its defense. Let the old reality stand, if it must, as yesterday's shadow. You need not attack it. You need not bow to it. You need not carry it into sleep. You may simply withdraw. Withdraw belief. Withdraw identity. Withdraw emotional obedience. Withdraw the old reaction. And as you withdraw from the old, turn gently toward the new. Not with strain, not with urgency, not with the desperation of one trying to escape, but with the calm authority of one who knows that reality. Tonight, you are not fighting the old world. You are leaving it. Tonight, you are not wrestling shadows. You are turning toward the light. Tonight, you are not waiting for the mirror. You are changing the face. Tonight, you are not feeding the old reality with reaction. You are withdrawing belief. And in that withdrawal, space opens, silence opens. The new state becomes possible, then near, then natural. The old world, deprived of your fear, begins to lose its atmosphere. It may still have images. It may still have memories. It may still try to call you back, but it no longer has the same authority, for you have begun to understand. You do not escape a reality by fighting its shadows. The mirror cannot move before the face. The old world feeds on your reaction to it. Leave the old reality by withdrawing your belief from it. Let these words become soft now. Let them move you away from resistance and into inward freedom. You are not at war. You are at the threshold. You are not trapped. You are identified with a state, and the state can change. So rest. Let the old battle cease. Let the inner hands open. Let the old reality speak without being obeyed. Let the mirror wait. Let the shadow pass. Let consciousness turn toward its new form. And as you move closer to sleep, know this: the world does not need to change first. The world is not first. The state is first. The I am is first. The assumption is first. And tonight, in the secret chamber where all realities are born, you are free to assume anew. Now, having ceased to fight the old world, having understood that the mirror does not move before the face, I want to bring you to a truth that, if accepted, will make the new reality feel wonderfully near. For many imagine that a new life is far away, somewhere hidden in time, waiting for years of struggle, waiting for proof, waiting for circumstances to become merciful. They think the new reality is a distant country, and that between where they are and where they would be, there is a long road of effort, chance, delay, and uncertainty. But I tell you, the new reality is not first a matter of time. It is a matter of state. Your new reality is not far away in time. It is near in consciousness. Let those words rest upon you gently. Your new reality is not far away in time. It is near in consciousness. Let those words rest upon you gently. Your new reality. The moment a man hears this, something in him may resist, because the senses have taught him to measure everything by distance, by days, by evidence, by steps. The senses say, here is where you are, and there is where you wish to be. There is a long distance between the two. But the senses only measure appearances. They cannot measure consciousness. They cannot tell you how close a state is. And the state, not the appearance, is the cause of the world you will meet. Every world has a state, and every state has a world. This is one of the great secrets. Every world has a state, and every state has a world. There is a world in which you feel secure, and that world belongs to a state of security. There is a world in which you are chosen, and that world belongs to a state of being chosen. There is a world in which life opens, and that world belongs to the state of one for whom life opens. There is a world in which you are fulfilled, established, received, supplied, loved, free, and at peace. That world is not first reached by running toward it. It is reached by entering the state that corresponds to it. A state is an inner position. It is a way of being aware of yourself. It is not merely a thought. It is not merely a wish. It is not a sentence spoken with the lips. It is the inward feeling of identity. It is what you know yourself to be before the world has said anything. It is the place from which you look, from which you interpret, from which you expect, from which you move. And because the world is consciousness objectified, the world must organize itself around the state you occupy. This is why I say you are not waiting for a new reality. You are learning to inhabit it. You are not waiting for a new reality. You are learning to inhabit it. The waiting man stands outside the house, looking at the windows, wondering when he will be admitted. The one who understands the law enters inwardly. He feels the room as his. He sits in the chair. He hears the sounds that would be natural there. He thinks from that dwelling, not of it. He does not stand in the rain saying, when will the door open? He finds the door within consciousness and occupies what belongs to him. Now, I do not mean that you create a world out of nothing by straining the mind. That is not what imagination is. Imagination is not mental violence. It is not forcing pictures until you are tired. It is not building a world brick by brick through anxious effort. The new reality already exists as a state. Your work is not to manufacture it from nothing. Your work is to enter it, to accept it, to wear it, to become familiar with it until it feels more natural than the old state you have left behind. There are infinite states. I have said this before in many ways, and I say it now softly, for the night is a good hour to hear it. You are moving always through states. You are not one fixed thing, though you may have identified with one state for so long that it appeared to be your nature. There is a state of confidence, a state of fear, a state of being loved, a state of being forgotten, a state of abundance, a state of lack, a state of peace, a state of conflict, a state of completion, a state of waiting. Each state carries its own thoughts, its own feelings, its own bodily posture, its own expectations, its own world. Enter the state, and the world belonging to it must appear. That is the law. Enter the state, and the world belonging to it must appear. It may not appear the same hour. It may not appear in the form your reason expected. It may come by roads you did not plan, by words you did not foresee, by people you did not command, by changes that seem ordinary, but the state, if occupied, must externalize. It must clothe itself. It must find events, faces, movements, and conditions that correspond to it. A state cannot remain invisible forever when it is truly inhabited. This is why you must stop thinking of the new reality as a far-off event and begin to think of it as a present state. You are not being asked to cross years tonight. You are being asked to cross identity. You are not being asked to move the whole world with your hands. You are being asked to move within. You are not being asked to persuade the shadow. You are being asked to occupy the form that casts another shadow. Your new reality is not far away in time. It is near in consciousness. Perhaps the mind says, if it is near, why do I not see it? Because you have been looking for it with the senses while standing in the old state. A man standing in one room cannot see the view from another window and then say the other window does not exist. He must enter the room. In the same way, a man standing in the state of fear cannot see the evidence belonging to the state of freedom and then say freedom is unreal. He must enter the state. The evidence follows occupancy. Do not ask for the evidence of the new state while continuing to live as the old self. That is like asking for the harvest while refusing to plant the seed. The seed is the state. The soil is consciousness. The night is fertile, and your feeling is the life within it. Now let me make this practical, for truth must be lived, not merely admired. Suppose a man has lived for years in the state of being overlooked. He wakes with that expectation. He interprets silence as neglect. He interprets delay as rejection. He interprets another's mood as evidence against himself. He carries the feeling, I am not chosen. And because he carries it, his world faithfully reflects experiences that seem to prove it. Now, if he tries to change the outer world while still occupying that state, he will exhaust himself. He may plead, he may explain, he may perform, he may resent, but he is still in the state of being overlooked. What must he do? He must enter the state of being chosen, not by demanding that the world choose him first, but by feeling inwardly that he already belongs, that he is already valued, that he is already received. At first, this may feel strange. It may feel like a garment that has not yet warmed to the body. But if he wears it gently, if he returns to it, if he sleeps in it, if he thinks from it, if he allows the body to soften into it, the state begins to feel natural. And when it feels natural, the world must change its behavior toward him. Every world has a state, and every state has a world. Suppose a woman has lived in the state of struggle. She does not merely have outer duties. She identifies with being burdened. She wakes prepared to be tired. She expects life to demand more than it gives. She says inwardly, it is always upon me. I must carry everything. And the world answers with more weight. Now she may try to rearrange the outer world. And some rearrangement may be helpful. But if the state remains, the burden returns in another form. The world will find a new way to express the old identity. She must enter the state of being supported. She must ask, how would I feel if I were already held by life? How would I breathe if I knew I did not carry the world alone? How would I lie down tonight if I knew help, order, ease, and right movement belonged to me? As she accepts that state, she does not become passive. She becomes aligned. The right action arises from the new state. The right words come. The right doors open. The body ceases to live as though it were hunted. And life, faithful to consciousness, begins to support her in visible ways. Enter the state, and the world belonging to it must appear. Now perhaps you say, but Neville, how do I enter a state that is not yet visible? You enter it the same way you have entered every state in your life, by acceptance. You have entered fear without evidence being complete. You have entered anxiety before the event happened. You have entered disappointment before the answer arrived. You have entered rejection from a single silence. You have entered lack from a thought of tomorrow. You know how to enter states. You have only done it unconsciously. Tonight you will enter consciously. A state is entered when you consent to its reality within yourself. You do not need the senses to confirm it first. You let the feeling of that state become present. You think from it, even if only for a few moments. You ask, what would be natural if this were already my reality? Not, how will I make it happen? Not, when will the world agree? But what would be natural now? And then you allow that naturalness to touch you. If you were already inside your new reality, would you be arguing with the old one tonight? No. If you were already inside your new reality, would you be waiting for permission from yesterday? No. If you were already inside your new reality, would you keep rehearsing the same fear? No. You would feel a quiet difference, perhaps not loud, perhaps not dramatic, but real. You would feel that the old no longer owns you. You would feel that something has shifted. You would feel that you belong elsewhere now. That feeling is the doorway. Do not despise it because it begins small. Men often miss the entrance to great realities because they expect the first feeling to be overwhelming. They expect thunder, they expect a sign, they expect a great emotional wave, but often the state begins as a small inner permission, a breath, a softening, a little space between you and the old fear, a thought that says, perhaps I do not have to be that one anymore, a subtle confidence that does not shout, a little naturalness. This is enough. If you enter it, it grows. Your new reality is not far away in time. It is near in consciousness, nearer than tomorrow, nearer than any outer road, nearer than the letter you wait for, nearer than the person you hope will change, nearer than the circumstance you want. It is near because it is a state, and a state is entered now or not at all. You can only occupy consciousness now. Even when you imagine tomorrow, you imagine it now. Even when you remember yesterday, you remember it now. Therefore, the point of power is always now, and now in this night you may enter. You are not waiting for a new reality. You are learning to inhabit it. To inhabit it means to live inwardly as though it were your home, not as a visitor who comes for a moment and then runs back to the old identity, not as a beggar standing outside the door, not as a stranger admiring it from afar. To inhabit means this is mine, this is natural, this is where I belong. A man inhabits a house by moving through it with the ease of ownership. He does not ask the chair for permission to sit. He does not ask the lamp if he may turn it on. He does not ask the room to prove that he lives there. He lives there, and because he lives there, everything in it feels natural. So inhabit the new reality inwardly. Sit in it, breathe in it, think from it, sleep in it. Let it become the inner house. If the old world knocks, you may hear it, but you do not move back into it. You remain where you are. You remain faithful to the state. Now let us consider the phrase, I am, for this is the door to every state. You may say many things in life, but the words I am they are not merely descriptive, they are generative. They marry consciousness to a state. When you say inwardly, I am alone, you enter a world belonging to aloneness. When you say, I am always struggling, you enter a world belonging to struggle. When you say, I am not yet there, you enter a world of distance. But when in the quiet you say, I am already within my new reality, and you feel the truth of it, you have moved. You have not merely spoken words, you have assumed a position. The outer world may not yet know what you have done. Let it be so. The seed beneath the earth is not seen by those walking above it, yet it has been planted. The bridge may not yet be visible. Let it be so. The bridge begins in the unseen. The old evidence may still be present. Let it be so. It is the shadow of former occupancy. Your work is not to panic because the shadow lingers. Your work is to remain in the new state until the shadow changes. Every world has a state, and every state has a world. The world of health has a state. The world of peace has a state. The world of love has a state. The world of prosperity has a state. The world of freedom has a state. The world of dignity has a state. The world of success has a state. The world of reconciliation has a state. The world of certainty has a state. You are not outside these worlds because time has rejected you. You are outside them only to the degree that you have not inhabited their state. Enter the state, and the world belonging to it must appear. This should bring relief. You are not asked to force 1,000 outer details. You are not asked to know how every person will move. You are not asked to design the entire bridge of incidents. You are not asked to convince the world. You are asked to occupy the state. The state contains its world, just as an acorn contains the pattern of the oak. You do not need to carve the branches. You plant the seed. You remain faithful to the seed. The life within it knows how to become the tree. So tonight, as the body moves closer to sleep, I want you to cease thinking of the new reality as something you must chase through time. Let it become an atmosphere you may enter now. Ask yourself, what is the state that belongs to the world I would wake inside? Not the details first. The state, is it peace? Is it confidence? Is it being loved? Is it being secure? Is it being already established? Is it being free of the old burden? Is it being one for whom things work naturally? Find the state and you have found the doorway. Then gently, without effort, try it on. If your new reality is peace, feel how the peaceful one lies in bed. If your new reality is being loved, feel how the loved one receives the night. If your new reality is freedom, feel how the free one breathes. If your new reality is security, feel how the secure one rests his hands, softens his face, and permits sleep to come. If your new reality is success, feel not the excitement of pursuit, but the quiet dignity of one who knows his place. If your new reality is being chosen, feel the warm certainty of belonging. Do you see? You are entering the state, not by force but by inward adjustment. It is as though you are tuning an instrument. The old state had one tone. You do not break the instrument, you tune it. You bring consciousness into harmony with the world you would experience. And once the tone is changed, the music changes. Now perhaps the old mind whispers, this is only imagination. I answer, imagination is the only reality. Not imagination as fantasy, not imagination as idle escape, but imagination accepted as true. Everything visible was first invisible. Every condition you now call fact was once a state. The world is imagination made objective. Therefore, when you enter a state in imagination and accept it as true, you have touched the cause. The senses may be slow to follow, but they must follow. They are effects. This is why the night is so precious. In the night, the outer evidence grows dim. The world releases its grip. The old facts do not vanish, but they become less loud. The body becomes still. The mind grows tender. The borderland of sleep opens. And in this borderland, you can enter the new state more easily than in the harsh brightness of the day. You can slip into it gently as one steps into a quiet room. Your new reality is not far away in time. It is near in consciousness, near enough to feel now, near enough to breathe now, near enough to sleep in now. Do not let the mind make it difficult. The mind loves distance because distance gives it problems to solve. But consciousness does not need distance. It needs acceptance. You do not need to force yourself to feel wildly different. You need only begin to feel from another center. You need only ask, if I were already there, how would I know myself? Then rest in the answer. Would you be calmer? Then be calmer now, not as a trick, but as the state. Would you be relieved? Then taste relief now. Would you be confident? Then let confidence become quiet and bodily. Would you be loved? Then allow the warmth of being loved to fill the inward place. Would you be free? Then feel the absence of the old chain, even before the outer world has noticed. This is not pretense. Pretense is acting for the world. Assumption is accepting within. Pretense fears discovery. Assumption creates discovery. Pretense says, I know it is not true, but I will act. Assumption says it is true in consciousness, and consciousness is cause. There is no strain in true assumption. There is a quiet dignity, a settled feeling, a naturalness beginning to be born. You are not waiting for a new reality. You are learning to inhabit it. And to inhabit it, you must stop visiting the old one so often in imagination. You cannot sleep in the new state while spending the night arguing in the old. You cannot inhabit freedom while rehearsing captivity. You cannot inhabit being loved while replaying abandonment. You cannot inhabit security while feeding danger. So when the old images arise, do not panic. Simply recognize that is the old state asking to be lived again. Then turn back to the new state, not with force, with choice. Again and again, softly, back to the new state, back to the feeling of already, back to the inner reality, back to the one who belongs there. This is how a state is occupied, not by one dramatic effort, but by returning. You return until it becomes easier to stay. You stay until it becomes natural. It becomes natural until it externalizes. Then the world calls it reality, though it was first a state. Every world has a state, and every state has a world. Now let this become personal. There is a version of you that belongs to the new reality. This version is not anxious about entering it. This version is not begging for proof. This version is not carrying the old name. This version does not look at yesterday and say, that is my destiny. This version knows inwardly, I am already in the state. And because this version knows, the body behaves differently. The breath changes. The face softens. The inner speech changes. The future no longer feels like an enemy. The present no longer feels like a prison. That version is not far away. It is a state. Enter the state, and the world belonging to it must appear. You do not need to become this version by strain. You need to occupy him. You need to feel from him. You need to ask, what would I think if I were already this one? How would I hear the night? How would I let the body rest? What would tomorrow feel like from this state? What would be natural to me? Then let the answer be felt. Perhaps it is a quiet sentence. It is already mine. Perhaps it is a breath, slow, deep, unguarded. Perhaps it is a feeling I no longer have to chase. Perhaps it is an image, waking tomorrow with a new inner atmosphere. Perhaps it is simply peace. Let it be enough. The state does not have to begin with grandeur. It begins with acceptance. A small true acceptance is more powerful than a great forced emotion. If you can accept for a moment, I am already within the new reality, and feel even a slight softening, you have touched the state. Return to it, let it deepen, let it become familiar. Now as you listen, allow the old idea of distance to dissolve. The new reality is not at the end of a road made of struggle. The new reality is not waiting behind years of effort. The new reality is not locked away until the world grants permission. It is a state, and states are entered in consciousness. Your new reality is not far away in time. It is near in consciousness. The one who lives there is near. The feeling of living there is near. The first breath of that world is near. The doorway is within you now. As the room becomes quiet, as the body becomes heavy, as the old world grows less persuasive, let yourself approach that doorway. Do not force it open. It opens by assumption. Stand inwardly, as the one who belongs. Let the old state remain outside. Let yesterday's evidence remain outside. Let the old name remain outside. Enter gently. You may say inwardly, I am in the state now, not loudly, not with strain, with the quietness of one entering his own house after a long journey. I am in the state now. And if you cannot yet feel it fully, do not be troubled. Even the willingness to enter is a turning. Even the first breath of relief is a sign. Even a small distance from the old state is movement. You are learning to inhabit what once seemed distant, and as you inhabit it, the world belonging to it begins to form. It forms first as feeling, then as thought, then as expectation, then as movement, then as conversations, decisions, letters, meetings, opportunities, changes of heart, changes of circumstance. The world belonging to the state finds its way into expression, because the state is the pattern, and life must clothe the pattern. This is why you may rest. You do not need to manufacture the whole world tonight. You need only enter the state. The state contains its world. The world follows the state. Every world has a state, and every state has a world. Enter the state, and the world belonging to it must appear. You are not waiting for a new reality. You are learning to inhabit it. Now let this knowledge become sleep-friendly. Let it stop being an idea and become a feeling. There is a state that belongs to the life you would wake into. That state is available now. You can feel it now. You can rest in it now. You can sleep in it now. And the world you wake into will begin to answer the state you slept in. Let the old distance fade. Let the old waiting fade. Let the old effort fade. The new reality is near. Near in consciousness. Near in feeling. Near in the I am. You are not outside it, looking in. You are entering. You are not begging time to carry you there. You are allowing consciousness to become there now. You are not manufacturing a world from nothing. You are occupying the state that already belongs to that world. And as you occupy it, softly, quietly, the invisible begins to prepare the visible. The inner house receives you. The new room becomes familiar. The old world loses its pull. The new world rests there now, not in effort, not in waiting, in occupancy. For your new reality is not far away in time, it is near in consciousness. And tonight, as you move closer to sleep, you may enter the state from which morning itself must begin to change. There is a secret hidden in the ordinary act of falling asleep, and because it is ordinary, men pass it by without reverence. They think the day ends when the lamp is lowered, when the room grows still, when the body turns from the outer world and seeks rest. But the day does not simply end in sleep. The day is given to the deep. The self you have worn is handed over. The feeling you carry is planted. The name you accept in the final inward moments is taken by the subconscious as instruction. The one who wakes is the one who slept. Let that be heard softly, yet seriously. The one who wakes is the one who slept. Morning does not invent a man from nothing. It returns to him the state he accepted before he passed into the invisible. If he sleeps as the frightened one, morning finds him again among reasons to fear. If he sleeps as the abandoned one, morning seems to know how to confirm abandonment. If he sleeps as the one who waits, morning opens into another corridor of waiting. If he sleeps as the old self, the old world knows where to meet him. This is why sleep is not a small matter. It is not merely a pause between 2 days. It is a sacred interval in which identity is sealed. The body rests, yes, but consciousness does not cease to be creative. The outer man becomes still, but the inner man continues his work. The gardener may leave the field at evening, but the seed does not stop growing because the eye is no longer watching. In the same way, what you give to the deep before sleep continues its silent movement while you rest. Do not fall asleep as the old self and expect to wake in a new world. This is not spoken harshly. It is spoken to free you from disappointment. So many say, "Why has the world not changed?" But then I ask them, who slept last night? Who entered the deep? Was it the one already fulfilled, already free, already established, already loved, already within the new reality? Or was it the same old self carrying the same old evidence, whispering the same old fears, repeating the same? The night is obedient. It does not argue with your identity. It receives it. The night receives your identity and gives it back as morning. What a wonderful and solemn truth. The night receives your identity and gives it back as morning. If you give the night the identity of one who struggles, it will return to you a morning shaped by struggle. If you give the night the identity of one who is behind, it will return to you a morning that seems to demand that you catch up. If you give the night the identity of one who is unwanted, uncertain, or powerless, it will return to you a world that seems to echo that invisible name. But if you give the night a new identity, if you fall asleep as one who already belongs to the new reality, then something changes at the root. The morning may for a little while contain remnants of yesterday, the room may look the same, the furniture may stand where it stood, the post may fall through the door as it did before. The voices of the world may sound familiar, but the one who meets them is no longer quite the same. And because the one who meets them is changed, the meaning of everything begins to change. Sleep as the one who already belongs there, not as one trying to enter, not as one begging to be admitted, not as one standing outside the new reality, pressing his face against the glass, hoping one day to be welcomed. Sleep as the one who already belongs there. Sleep from within. Sleep as though the new state were your dwelling. Sleep as though the new reality had already received you, and there was nothing strange, nothing impossible, nothing distant about your belonging. This is the art, and it is simple, but simplicity does not make it weak. The most powerful laws are simple. A seed is simple, a word is simple, a breath is simple, the name I am is simple, yet within it is the whole mystery of creation. So do not despise the simple act of falling asleep in a state. Do not say, "Can such a little thing change my world?" I tell you, the world you have known has been built by little things repeated with feeling. A thought in the morning, a fear before sleep, a private sentence repeated through the day, a mood carried into the night. Little things faithfully accepted become the world men call real. Therefore let tonight be used with understanding. The old self has used sleep many times without your permission. It has taken your tiredness and filled it with worry. It has taken your pillow and turned it into an altar of old fears. It has taken the silence of night and placed upon it the voices of yesterday. It has said, "Lie down and rehearse what went wrong. Lie down and prepare for disappointment. Lie down and imagine the same burdens waiting for you at dawn." And because you did not know the law, you may have obeyed, not deliberately, not because you wished to suffer, but because habit seemed natural. Now you know better. The threshold of sleep is not to be given carelessly to the old self. It is the doorway into the deep, and the deep does not receive only what you say, it receives what you feel yourself to be. You may say, "I am entering a new reality," but if you lie down as the one who is still desperately looking for proof, the deep receives the desperation. You may say it is done, but if you sleep as the one who secretly believes nothing has changed, the deep receives that secret belief. The subconscious is not fooled by words. It takes the feeling as fact. So tonight, I do not ask you merely to repeat. I ask you to become. Become inwardly the one who will wake differently. Become the one who no longer gives the first breath of morning to fear. Become the one who no longer reaches for yesterday's name. Become the one who can meet the dawn with a new inner posture. And the way to become this one is not by forcing the mind into noise, but by entering the feeling of being already there. The one who wakes is the one who slept. Now let us consider the ordinary morning, for that is where the law often reveals itself. A man opens his eyes, and before he rises, before his feet touch the floor, he remembers who he believes himself to be. He remembers his lack, his loneliness, his uncertainty, his problem, his resentment, his burden. The remembrance is not only mental, it is bodily. The chest tightens, the face takes on the old expression, the breath is shallow, the mind reaches for the old story, like a hand reaching for a familiar coat, and in that moment, the old world is being entered again. He does not know that he is choosing. He thinks he is simply waking up, but waking is often re-entering an identity. He wakes into the state he slept in. If he slept in worry, worry is waiting. If he slept in the feeling of being unresolved, unresolved greets him. If he slept rehearsing the old world has a place prepared. And then he says, another day has begun. But it is not merely another day. It is the continuation of a state. Do not fall asleep as the old self and expect to wake in a new world. If you wish to wake in a new world, sleep as the new self. Sleep as the one who already knows the end. Sleep as the one whose inner argument is over. Sleep as the one who belongs. Sleep as the one who is no longer waiting for permission from circumstances. Sleep as the one who has crossed. Then, even if the first morning is gentle, even if the change begins as a small inward difference, it is enough. For every outer transformation begins as an inward difference. You may wake and feel a strange quiet where there used to be pressure. That is the new self beginning to rise. You may wake and notice that the old fear tries to speak, but you do not believe it with the same immediacy. That is the new self beginning to rise. You may wake and feel that something is softer, less desperate, less bound to the old evidence. That is the new self beginning to rise. Do not demand that the whole earth shake before you honor the shift. The kingdom begins within, often as stillness. The night receives your identity and gives it back as morning. If this is true, and I tell you it is, then the final moments before sleep are among the most creative moments of your day. The world may think that important moments are always loud, visible, public, or dramatic, but the deepest moments are often hidden. A man lying quietly in the dark, unknown to the world, may be changing his entire life if he changes the self he carries into sleep. There is no audience, there is no applause, there is only consciousness and its assumption. And yet from that secret act, worlds are born. Do you not remember the words of Scripture, that when deep sleep falls upon men, instruction is sealed? This is not poetry alone, it is law. When the conscious mind grows drowsy, when the senses withdraw, when the body becomes heavy, the deeper mind becomes receptive. It is then that the state is sealed. It is then that the invisible command is given. And the command is not merely the phrase you repeat. The command is the identity you accept. So ask yourself tonight very softly, what identity shall I give to the night? Will you give it the identity of the old self, the one who is still explaining, still defending, still hoping, still fearing, still wounded by the same images? Or will you give it the identity of one who already lives in the new reality, the one who sleeps with quiet possession, the one who has nothing to prove to the old world, the one who does not need morning to bring permission because consciousness has already granted it? Sleep is the one who already belongs there. Feel the difference between hoping to belong and belonging. Hope still stands outside. Belonging has entered. Hope says perhaps tomorrow. Belonging says I am. Hope looks toward the door. Belonging sits at the table. Hope asks for signs. Belonging rests in the house. I do not ask you to sleep in hope tonight. I ask you to sleep in belonging. If the new reality is one of peace, sleep as the peaceful one. Do not sleep as the anxious one, hoping to become peaceful. Sleep as peace. Let the body take the shape of peace. Let the breath become the breath of peace. Let the mind stop pleading for peace and enter peace as a present fact. If the new reality is one of love, sleep as the loved one. Do not sleep as the rejected one, begging. Sleep as one already chosen, already held in the unseen, already valued. Let the feeling of being loved be your pillow. Let the inner conversation soften into warmth. Let the night receive you as one who belongs to love. If the new reality is one of freedom, sleep as the free one. Do not sleep as the prisoner counting the bars. Sleep as one whose inner chains have fallen. The outer may not yet know what has happened, but consciousness knows, the deep knows, the state knows, and what the state knows, the world must learn. If the new reality is one of provision, sleep as the supplied one, not as the one calculating from fear, not as the one measuring tomorrow with dread. Sleep as one who is supported, one for whom life has channels, one for whom right movement is already forming. Sleep as the one who already belongs there. This is not pretending. Pretending is for the eyes of men. Assumption is for the depths of God within you. Pretending asks, do they believe me? Assumption asks nothing from the outer world. It accepts inwardly. It rests. It allows the deep to receive the seed. It does not need the old world to applaud. It does not need the old facts to vanish instantly. It knows that the invisible must precede the visible. The one who wakes is the one who slept. Therefore, as sleep approaches, guard the inner gate with gentleness. Do not allow the old self to rush in at the final moment, carrying all his papers, all his complaints, all his accusations, all his predictions. You do not need to wrestle him. Simply do not admit him as your identity. If a thought comes, let it pass. If a fear rises, let it be a passing mood, not your name. If old evidence appears in imagination, do not enter it. Say within, that belonged to the old day. I am entering the new state. The last state matters. Not because the law is fragile, but because sleep magnifies acceptance. What you carry into sleep is carried deeper than what you speak in the noise of the day. A passing thought in the afternoon may touch the mind and leave, but a state accepted before sleep sinks into the deep and begins to organize from within. It becomes a seed of morning. It colors the first breath. It prepares the atmosphere in which you wake. The night receives your identity and gives it back as morning. Now I want you to feel the sacredness of this without becoming tense. Do not think, I must do it perfectly. Perfection is another mask of fear. This is not a difficult ceremony. It is a gentle choosing. It is turning away from the old self and resting as the new. It is saying without strain, I know who I am now. It is allowing the body to agree with the assumption. It is allowing sleep to take you while you feel yourself to be already in the reality you would know. Perhaps the feeling comes only faintly at first. That is enough. A seed is small. A flame begins small. A new identity may begin as a quiet permission. You may not feel transformed in a dramatic way. You may simply feel less bound, less interested in old fear, less willing to call yesterday truth, less willing to sleep as the one who suffered the day. Honor that. That is the crossing beginning. Do not fall asleep as the old self and expect to wake in a new world. But also do not condemn yourself if you have done so before. You did not know what you were doing. You did not know that the night was receiving your identity. You did not know that the final feeling before sleep was a seed. You did not know that the old self was being carried into morning by repetition. Now you know, and knowing gives you the power to choose. Tonight can be different, not because the room is different, not because the outer facts have already bowed, not because anyone has spoken the word you hoped to hear. Tonight can be different because the sleeper can be different. And if the sleeper is different, the morning has received a new command. This is the sacred exchange of night. You give the deep a state, and the deep gives the world a form. You give the deep an identity, and morning begins to dress itself around it. You give the deep the feeling of being already there, and life begins to build a bridge toward the outer expression of there. This is why I say sleep is powerful. It is not unconscious waste, it is creative surrender. Men work hard in the day to rearrange the visible, yet at night they hand the invisible to fear. Then they wonder why their labor feels endless. But the wise man uses the night. He does not bring his old arguments into the deep. He brings the end. He brings the new name. He brings the fulfilled state. He brings the feeling of already, and then he sleeps, not as a beggar before a closed door, but as one who has entered the house. Sleep as the one who already belongs there. Now let the phrase become intimate, not general, not distant. Let it speak to you. Sleep as the one who already belongs in the life you would live. Sleep as the one who already belongs in the love you would know. Sleep as the one who already belongs in the peace you would feel. Sleep as the one who already belongs in the freedom you would express. Sleep as the one who already belongs in the dignity, the confidence, the beauty, the order, the fulfillment of the new reality. You do not need to shout this within. It is more powerful when it is quiet. It should feel like a fact becoming natural. The new self does not need to persuade the room. The new self does not need to announce itself to the world before sleeping. It simply rests as itself. It simply knows. It simply lies down in the state. Now perhaps the old self says, but what if tomorrow looks the same? Answer gently, then I will not put on the old name. Perhaps the old self says, what if nothing has changed? Answer, the cause has changed. Perhaps the old self says, what if I wake and feel afraid? Answer, then I will remember who slept. Do not be frightened by the possibility of old echoes. Echoes are not masters. The new state is your dwelling. The one who wakes is the one who slept. So sleep consciously, sleep with reverence. Sleep not as one collapsing under the weight of the day, but as one entering the inner chamber where tomorrow is instructed. Let the day end. Let its evidence fade. Let the old reactions release their grip. Let the familiar self become less necessary. Let the body become heavy, but let consciousness become clear in one simple knowing. I am not sleeping as the old self tonight. I am sleeping as the one who already belongs there. Let that be enough. If you can take that into the deep, you have done something great. If you can let sleep receive that identity, even softly, even imperfectly, you have planted a new seed. The morning may not know at first how to explain you. The old world may try to call you by yesterday's name, but something will have changed. A new sleeper will have entered the night, and a new one must rise. The night receives your identity and gives it back as morning. Now let these words slow within you. The body can rest, the mind can soften. You do not need to solve the bridge tonight. You do not need to design the whole new world. You need only decide who sleeps. Not with pressure, not with fear, with quiet authority. The old self need not be carried further. The old state need not be planted again. The old name need not be whispered into the deep. Another identity is available. Another state is near. Another morning can be born. Sleep as the one who already belongs there. And when morning comes, whether softly or suddenly, whether with great signs or small changes, remember this: it has come to meet the state you gave to the night. Give it a new one now. Give the night the feeling of completion. Give the night the name of the new self. Give the night the quiet certainty that you already inhabit the new reality. For the one who wakes is the one who slept, and tonight you may sleep as the one you have chosen to become. Now, as you begin to understand the sacred power of sleep, as you begin to see that the one who wakes is the one who slept, I want to speak to you with great tenderness about the old self. For many, when they first discover that their old world has been born from an old state, they become harsh with themselves. They look back upon their fears, their reactions, their doubts, their years of repetition, and they say, I have done this to myself. And then, without realizing it, they create another burden. They add shame to the very state they are leaving. But I do not bring you this teaching so that you may condemn yourself. I bring it so that you may be free. You do not destroy the old self. You stop wearing it. Let that be received gently. You do not destroy the old self. You stop wearing it. The old self is not an enemy to be hunted down in the night. It is not a criminal to be dragged before some inward court and punished. It is not a monster hidden in you. It is a state. It is a garment. It is a way of being that you learned, repeated, and then mistook for your identity. And now, because you are awakening, you may remove it. The old self was a garment, not your eternal name. This is most important. The old self was a garment, not your eternal name. Perhaps you wore the garment of fear because you believed fear would protect you. Perhaps you wore the garment of struggle because you were taught that struggle was noble. Perhaps you wore the garment of rejection because life once seemed to speak to you that way. Perhaps you wore the garment of lack, waiting, self-doubt, or uncertainty because somewhere along the road you accepted it as true. But none of these garments is the I am itself. They are states placed upon the I am. And what is placed upon the I am may be changed. The I am beneath the garment remains free. A man may wear a coat for many years, and because he has worn it through many seasons, because others have seen him in it, because he has reached for it each morning without thinking, he may feel that the coat is part of him. But a coat is not the body, a garment is not the being, a state is not the eternal self. If he takes off the coat, the man remains. If you take off the old identity, the I am remains. You do not lose yourself, you discover yourself. This is why I say, do not fight what you are leaving. Walk out of it. Do not fight what you are leaving. Walk out of it. Fighting gives too much honor to the thing you are leaving. Fighting says, you are powerful and I must defeat you. But walking out says, you were a room I occupied, you were a garment I wore, you were a name I answered to, but I am not bound to remain. There is dignity in walking out, there is quiet authority in it. There is no violence, there is no hatred, there is no need to curse the old state, you simply cease to live from it. Many people try to change by attacking the old self. They say, I must kill my doubt, I must destroy my fear, I must crush my weakness, I must shame myself into becoming new. But all of this is still the old state speaking. For the old self thrives on conflict. It loves the feeling of being wrong, being broken, being behind, being in need of repair. If you fight it with hatred, you may remain inside. You may think you are leaving, but inwardly you are still occupied with it. A new reality begins when the old identity is no longer fed, not when the old identity is hated, not when the old identity is shouted at, not when the old identity is punished. A new reality begins when the old identity is no longer fed. And what feeds an identity? Attention with belief, reaction with feeling, repetition with acceptance, inner speech spoken as truth, a mood returned to a. The old identity does not need you to love it, it only needs you to keep becoming it. So tonight, do not become the old self in order to defeat the old self. Step out. If fear rises, do not say, I am afraid, and I must fight this fear. Say gently, fear is a garment I have worn. I no longer need to fasten it around me. If shame rises, do not say, I am ashamed, and therefore I am failing. Say gently, shame belonged to an old state. If doubt rises, do not say, this doubt proves I am not changed. Say gently, doubt is an old voice. I hear it, but I do not answer to it. This is how you outgrow. Growth is not always dramatic. A child does not destroy his old shoes when he outgrows them. He simply can no longer walk in them naturally. They become tight. They no longer belong to his present form. In the same way, the old self may begin to feel tight around you. Old reactions may no longer. Old fears may still appear, but something in you knows they are not your home. Old thoughts may come, but they do not sit as deeply. Old evidence may speak, but you no longer feel the same obedience to it. This is growth. You do not destroy the old self. You stop wearing it. There is compassion in this, and compassion is important, for the old self did not come from nowhere. The old self was often formed as a response to life as you understood it. It may have been formed in childhood, when you did not yet know that imagination creates reality. It may have been formed through words spoken over you by others who did not know their own creative power. It may have been formed through disappointment, through fear, through the need to survive, through repeated appearances that seem to say, this is who you are. And because you did not know the law, you accepted the costume. Do not despise yourself for this. A man walking in darkness may grasp at many things. He may take a wrong road, not because he is wicked, but because he cannot yet see. When the light comes, he does not need to curse the man who walked in darkness. He simply walks differently now. So do not curse the version of yourself that lived from old states. That self was not your enemy. It was consciousness asleep in a garment. Now consciousness is waking, and when consciousness wakes, the garment can be removed without hatred. The old self was a garment, not your eternal name. Perhaps the old self was the one who apologized for existing. Perhaps it was the one who expected less than he wanted. Perhaps it was the one who waited to be chosen. Perhaps it was the one who believed that good things were for others. Perhaps it was the one who repeated inwardly, not yet, not me, not now. Perhaps it was the one who felt that life must be earned through anxiety. But all of that was a state. It was not the eternal I am. The I am took its shape for a time. Now it may take another shape. This is why the teaching is not about self-improvement in the ordinary sense. I am not asking you to polish the old self until it becomes acceptable. I am not asking you to make fear more efficient, or doubt more attractive, or struggle more noble. I am asking you to abandon the state entirely, not by violence, by assumption. You do not improve the old identity into the new one. You occupy the new identity, and the old one falls away from lack of use. Do not fight what you are leaving. Walk out of it. Imagine a man sitting in a dark room for years. He has known every object in that room by touch. He knows where the chair stands. He knows the coldness of the floor. He knows the old air. He has spoken to himself there for so long that the room seems like the whole of life. Then one day, he discovers a door. At first he may feel angry at the room, he may strike the walls, he may curse the darkness, but none of that is necessary. The door is open, his freedom is not in arguing with the room, his freedom is in walking out. The old state is such a room. You may have lived in it long enough to know all its corners. You may know the exact thought that appears in the morning, the exact fear that comes before sleep, the exact reaction that rises when someone speaks, the exact heaviness that settles in the body when the old evidence appears. You know the furniture of that room, but knowing it does not mean you belong there. Familiarity is not destiny. You may walk out, and how do you walk out? You cease to identify. You cease to say, "This is me." You cease to give the old state your name. You stop telling the same story as though it were sacred. You stop wearing the garment in imagination. You stop entering sleep as the one who still lives there. You begin to say, softly, inwardly, not as an argument, but as a recognition. That was a state. I am not that state. I am free to occupy another. A new reality begins when the old identity is no longer fed. Now be patient with yourself in this. When a garment has been worn for years, the hand reaches for it automatically. When a state has been occupied for years, the mind returns to it automatically. This does not mean you have failed. It means habit is still. Do not confuse the echo of a former state with the truth of your present being. The old self may try to rise because it has risen many times before. Let it rise as memory. Do not let it become identity. If in the quiet of the night an old feeling appears, do not become harsh. Do not say, "I should be beyond this." That very statement belongs to shame. Instead, become gentle and clear. Say within, "This is an old garment being offered to me. I do not need to put it on." Then return to the new state. Return to the feeling of belonging. Return to the feeling of already being inside the new reality. Return without drama. Return as many times as needed. Each return weakens the old identification and strengthens the new. This is how consciousness is trained, not by punishment, but by loyalty. You have been loyal to the old self in ways you did not realize. You were loyal when you repeated its fears. You were loyal when you defended its limitations. You were loyal when you told its story inwardly. You were loyal when you slept in its mood. Now become loyal to the new self. Not violently, not anxiously. Simply choose it again. Wear it again. Sleep in it again. Speak inwardly from it again. Let the new garment become familiar. The new self is not created by condemning the old. It is accepted by assuming the new. This is where many seekers become confused. They think, "I must analyze the old self completely before I can leave it." And so they spend years studying their bondage. They trace every fear, every wound, every disappointment, every reaction, as though they must know every stone in the prison before they may depart. But I tell you, you do not need to understand every chain to walk through an open door. You do not need to make a biography of the old self before you enter the new. Once you know it is a state, you have enough. Move. Do not fight what you are leaving. Walk out of it. This does not mean you deny your past. It means you refuse to worship it. The past may have happened, but the past is not entitled to be your identity. The past may have shaped the old garment, but it did not name the eternal I am. You may remember without returning. You may acknowledge without obeying. You may see where you have been without sleeping there again. The old self was a garment, not your eternal name. If you feel sadness for the old self, let there be tenderness. Perhaps it tried very hard. Perhaps it was afraid. Perhaps it believed it had to guard you from disappointment by expecting disappointment. Perhaps it believed it had to keep you small so you would not be hurt. Perhaps it believed that longing was safer than receiving, that waiting was safer than fulfillment, that not expecting too much was wisdom. Bless it if you can. Not because it was true, but because it was a state that served until you awakened beyond it. Then release it. A man leaving an old house does not need to burn it to prove he has moved. He gathers what is useful, blesses what is past, closes the door, and goes forward. If he stands outside throwing stones through the windows, he is still emotionally living there. But if he walks on, if he builds elsewhere, if he sleeps elsewhere, if he receives his post elsewhere, if his days begin elsewhere, then the old house loses its place in his life. So it is with the old identity. Do not stand before it all night throwing stones. Walk on. Sleep elsewhere in consciousness. Receive your morning from a new state. You do not destroy the old self. You stop wearing it. Feel the relief in this. You do not need to become violent inwardly. You do not need to declare war against parts of yourself. You do not need to hate your fear in order to be free of fear. You do not need to hate your past in order to transcend it. You do not need to punish your doubt in order to enter faith. You need only stop giving these states the sacred name I am. I am is holy. Be careful what you place after it. Do not say, I am broken, and then wonder why brokenness repeats. Do not say, I am the old self, and then wonder why the old world appears. Say instead, quietly and with feeling, I am free to enter a new state. I am no longer required to wear what I have outgrown. I am not my former garment. I am the one who can choose. This is not a small thing. To separate the I am from an old identity is liberation. The world may not see it immediately. Others may still call you by the old assumption. Circumstances may still appear in the clothing of yesterday. But inwardly something has been loosened. The knot is not as tight. The old name does not go as deep. And once the I am is freed from the old garment, it can clothe itself in the new. A new reality begins when the old identity is no longer fed. Now let us see how the old identity is fed, so you may stop feeding it gently. It is fed when you rehearse old arguments in imagination. It is fed when you wake and immediately say inwardly, here we are again. It is fed when you interpret every silence as confirmation of old fear. It is fed when you carry the day's evidence into sleep and feel it as final. It is fed when you tell yourself the story of why you cannot change. It is fed when you insist that because you have been one way, you must remain that way. Tonight we withdraw the food, not with tension, not with anger, with quiet refusal. You do not need to feed a thought by following it. You do not need to feed a mood by naming it yourself. You do not need to feed a memory by living in it again. You do not need to feed old evidence by making it prophecy. Let these things appear, if they appear, but do not feed them. Let them pass through the night like shadows on a wall. Shadows need your belief to become worlds. Without belief, they fade. Now what do you feed instead? You feed the new identity. You feed it with feeling. You feed it with attention. You feed it by sleeping as the one who already belongs. You feed it by inner speech that agrees with fulfillment. You feed it by returning again and again to the state of the new reality. You feed it by refusing to make old evidence your master. You feed it by resting in the assumption until it becomes natural. Every identity grows by nourishment. The old self grew because it was nourished unconsciously. The new self grows because it is nourished consciously. Let this be easy. You are not asked to become perfect tonight. You are asked to become willing. Willing to stop shaming the old self. Willing to stop fighting what you are leaving. Willing to stop calling an old garment your eternal name. Willing to sleep in a new state, even if at first it feels tender, unfamiliar, or quiet. The new identity may not feel dramatic. It may feel like peace. It may feel like permission. It may feel like a breath you have not taken in years. It may feel like the absence of an old weight. It may feel like no longer needing to explain yourself to yesterday. Do not dismiss that. The beginning of a new reality is often the end of an old tension. Do not fight what you are leaving. Walk out of it. Now, as you listen, allow the old self to become less threatening. Perhaps you can see it now as something you wore, not something you are. Perhaps you can feel compassion for the one who carried fear, who tried to survive, who misunderstood the law, who believed appearance was master. Perhaps you can whisper inwardly, you were never my enemy, you were only a state, and now I am free to outgrow you. There is a great peace in that. When you stop hating the old self, you stop being tangled with it. When you stop being ashamed of the old self, you stop dragging shame into the new state. When you stop fighting the old self, you free energy to occupy the new. The old identity does not need a funeral of violence. It needs to be left unfed. It needs to become unused. It needs to be outgrown. A garment left unworn loses its shape in your life. A path no longer walked becomes covered. A room no longer entered gathers silence. A state no longer occupied loses reality. This is how the old self passes away. Not by battle, by abandonment. Not by hatred, by non-identification. Not by destruction, by outgrowing. You do not destroy the old self. You stop wearing it. Now take that into the body. Let the body feel as though an old garment is loosening. Around the shoulders, where you carried the old burden, let it loosen. Around the chest, where old fear may have tightened, let it loosen. Around the stomach, where old uncertainty may have gathered, let it loosen. Around the face, where the old identity may have formed an expression, let it loosen. Around the hands, where you may have tried to hold life together, let it loosen. You are not tearing anything away. You are not forcing release. You are allowing what is no longer yours to fall from you. The old self was a garment, not your eternal name. Beneath it, the I am remains untouched, not wounded by the garment, not stained by the state, not imprisoned by former identification. The I am remains the power to be, and tonight that power can be joined to a new assumption. I am free, I am chosen, I am secure, I am loved, I am supplied, I am established, I am already inside my new reality. Let one of these or another that belongs to your heart be felt as a new garment. Do not force it to feel perfect. Simply place it upon the I am. Gently wear it inwardly for a moment. Feel how it might be to sleep in it. Feel how the body would rest if this were your natural name. Feel how the morning would greet you if this were the identity given to the night. A new reality begins when the old identity is no longer fed. So let the old identity go hungry tonight. Do not feed it with fear. Do not feed it with memory. Do not feed it with shame. Do not feed it with the same old inner conversation. Feed the new. Feed the quiet assumption. Feed the feeling of belonging. Feed the knowing that you are not what you have worn. Feed the inward certainty that another state is available now. If the old self knocks, bless it and do not open. If it calls, hear it and do not answer. If it presents evidence, see it and do not bow. If it offers the familiar garment, let it lie where it is. You do not need it for the journey ahead. Do not fight what you are leaving. Walk out of it. Walk out inwardly. Now walk out of the name that says you cannot change. Walk out of the mood that says tomorrow must repeat yesterday. Walk out of the shame that says you should have known sooner. Walk out of the fear that says the old self is stronger than the new. Walk out of the false belief that transformation must be violent. Walk out gently as one leaving a room where he has slept too long. And as you walk out, do not look back with hatred. Look back, if you must, with understanding. That was a state, that was a garment, that was an old dwelling, that was not my eternal name. I am not destroying it, I am outgrowing it. I am not fighting it, I am leaving. I am not punishing myself, I am freeing myself. Now let the night receive this freedom. Let sleep become the place where the old garment is finally laid aside. Let the deep mind receive not shame, not violence, not fear of the old self, but the calm truth: I am no longer wearing that identity. I sleep as the one who belongs to the new reality. You do not destroy the old self, you stop wearing it. The old self was a garment, not your eternal name. Do not fight what you are leaving. Walk out of it. A new reality begins when the old identity is no longer fed. Let these words become softer now, not as doctrine alone, but as rest. You are safe to change. You are safe to outgrow. You are safe to stop being loyal to the old state. You are safe to release the identity that once seemed necessary. You are safe to become new without hatred, without punishment, without shame. The old self does not need to be dragged into mourning. The old name does not need to be whispered into sleep. The old garment does not need to be worn again. Lay it aside, rest beneath it no longer. The I am remains, and the I am, free and awake, may now clothe itself in the new. Now, having seen that the old self need not be destroyed, only outgrown, I want to show you the actual movement by which one world is left and another is entered. It is not a movement of the feet. It is not a journey across the earth. It is not the changing of a house, a city, a position, or a circumstance. Those may follow, but they are not the crossing itself. The crossing is inward. It is the quiet transfer of loyalty from what appears to what is assumed. Tonight you cross from evidence to assumption. Let that be heard deeply. Tonight you cross from evidence to assumption. Evidence is what the senses report. Assumption is what consciousness accepts. Evidence says, look at what has been. Assumption says, this is what I am now. Evidence points to the old world. Assumption opens the new. Evidence speaks from yesterday's state. Assumption speaks from the creative present. And the man who lives by evidence remains bound to the world evidence belongs to. But the man who lives by assumption begins to enter the world. Assumption creates. Reaction keeps you in the old world. This is the first thing you must understand. Reaction keeps you in the old world. When something appears and you react from the old identity, you have crossed back into the old state. You may say with your lips that you are new, But if the same old circumstance can call forth the same old fear, the same old wound, the same old anger, the same old helplessness, the same old inward collapse, then for that moment you have given the old world your allegiance. You have allowed it to tell you who you are. Reaction is not merely an emotion. Reaction is agreement. It is the silent confession. This appearance has the power to define me. It is the old self answering when the old world calls. A letter arrives, and the old self tightens. A person is silent, and the old self concludes rejection. A delay appears, and the old self says nothing changes. A difficulty rises, and the old self says, here it is again. These reactions may feel natural because they have been repeated, but they are not law. They are loyalty to the old state. The crossing happens when you stop asking the old reality who you are. This is the exact point of change. The crossing happens when you stop asking the old reality who you are. Until then, every appearance becomes an oracle. Every delay becomes a verdict. Every word from another becomes a judgment. Every memory becomes a command. You look outward and ask, am I loved? Am I safe? Am I chosen? Am I free? Am I supplied? Am I becoming new? And the old reality, being only the shadow of former states, answers from the past. If you believe it, you remain. But there comes a moment when you refuse to ask the shadow for your name. That moment is the crossing. You may still see the appearance. You may still hear the word. You may still remember what happened. But you no longer kneel before it for identity. You no longer say, tell me who I am. You turn within, to the only source, and you assume. You take the name inwardly. You say not in noise, not in strain, but in quiet authority. I am what I have accepted in consciousness. I am not what yesterday reports. Assumption is the bridge into the new. Assumption is not pretending. Assumption is not a weak hope. Assumption is not a pleasant lie spoken against evidence. Assumption is the creative act by which consciousness enters a state and calls itself. It is the inward acceptance of a reality before the senses confirm it. It is the decision to live from the end, not because the world has granted permission, but because imagination is the only cause and the world must follow. Assumption is the bridge into the new, not reaction. Reaction repeats the old bridge. Reaction walks again into the old room. Reaction gives the old evidence another day of life. But assumption builds another bridge, because assumption belongs to another state. When you assume, you do not merely think differently. You move differently in consciousness. You stand in a new place. You look from a new window. You answer life from a new name. This is why I have always said you must think from the end, not merely of the end. To think of the new reality, while standing in the old self, is to remain divided. You look at the new life from a distance and call it desirable. But to think from the new reality is to enter it. It is to let your inner speech, your feeling, your interpretation, and your expectation arise from the one who already belongs there. Now let us make this very clear, because clarity gives rest to the mind. Suppose the old reality presents an appearance. Perhaps it is a delay. The old self immediately says, this means it is not happening. That is reaction. That is the old world interpreting itself. But assumption says, delay has no authority to name me. I am already in the state. The bridge is moving in ways I do not yet see. Do you feel the difference? One bows to evidence. The other stands in consciousness. Suppose a person is silent. The old self says, I am forgotten. I am not chosen. I am unwanted. That is reaction. The silence has become a master. But assumption says, I am chosen. I am loved. I am secure in my state. I do not ask silence to define me. This is not forcing the person to speak. It is withdrawing identity from appearance and returning it to the I am. Suppose the body feels fear. The old self says, this fear proves I have not changed. That is reaction. But assumption says, fear is an old echo. It is not my name. I am the one who can observe it and remain in the chosen state. This is the crossing. You no longer let every passing sensation drag you back into the old world. Reaction keeps you in the old world. So tonight, become aware of reaction not as an enemy, but as a signal. When reaction rises, it is showing you where the old reality still asks for allegiance. It says, come back, be the one you used to be. Interpret this as you always did. Feel the old meaning. Speak the old sentence. Put on the old garment. And now, because you know you may answer with silence, you may answer by not entering. You may answer by assumption. There is great power in not entering. A man believes he must fight every thought, every fear, every appearance. But the stronger act is often simply not to enter the old state. The thought appears. You do not follow it. The fear appears. You do not crown it. The evidence appears. You do not worship it. You stay with your assumption. You remain in the new identity. You let the old invitation pass. The crossing happens when you stop asking the old reality who you are. Now I want you to feel how this crossing happens in the quiet of the body. Reaction has a certain shape. It moves quickly, it tightens, it contracts, it leans forward anxiously, it wants to answer at once, it wants to explain, defend, accuse, plead, predict, prepare, and protect. Reaction feels urgent because it belongs to the old world of danger. It says, if I do not react, I will lose control. But reaction never gave you true control. It only kept you faithful to the old state. Assumption feels different. Assumption is quieter. It may be firm, but it is not frantic. It does not need to shout because it is not asking permission. Assumption feels like returning to a known seat. It feels like placing the crown back upon the inner head. It feels like breathing from the end. It says, I know who I am, even before the world knows how to show it. Tonight, as you lie there, begin to notice the difference. Do not strain, simply listen inwardly. If the old mind brings an image, a memory, a worry, an unfinished matter, notice the first impulse. Does the body tighten? Does the mind rush? Does the old self want to explain? That is reaction. It is the old bridge. Do not walk it, instead pause inwardly. In that pause is the doorway. The old reality speaks, but you need not answer. The evidence appears, but you need not accept its verdict. The memory rises, but you need not wear its name. In the pause, assume. Assume what is true in the new reality, not what the old evidence says, not what fear predicts, not what habit repeats. Assume the state you have chosen. If the new reality is peace, assume peace. If it is love, assume love. If it is freedom, assume freedom. If it is provision, assume provision. If it is confidence, assume confidence. If it is being chosen, assume being chosen. Do not ask the old reality whether you may. You are the operant power. Assumption is the bridge into the new. Now perhaps the mind says, but I do not feel it fully. That is all right. Do not turn that into another reaction. The old self loves to say, I do not feel it, therefore I have failed. No, feeling is cultivated by occupancy. A man who enters a new house may at first feel the strangeness of it. But if he lives there, sleeps there, receives his letters there, sits by the fire there, and calls it home, it becomes his dwelling. So with a state, enter it gently, return to it, speak from it, sleep in it. It will become natural. Do not demand complete naturalness at the door. Enter, and naturalness will grow. Tonight you cross from evidence to assumption. Evidence says, you have been this. Assumption says, I am this now. Evidence says, this has happened before. Assumption says, a new state is occupied. Evidence says, the old pattern is real. Assumption says, the old pattern was a shadow of an old state. Evidence says, wait until the world changes. Assumption says, the world changes because I have changed within. This is not arrogance. This is law. The world is yourself pushed out. Therefore, to change the world, you do not wait for the world to change you. You change the self you are accepting. And the first proof of that change is not an outer sign. The first proof is the inner refusal to react as the old self. When the old appearance can no longer command the old reaction, the old world has begun to lose you. Think about that gently. When the old appearance can no longer command the old reaction, the old world has begun to lose you. It may still stand before you, but it no longer possesses you in the same way. It calls, and you do not come as quickly. It speaks, and you do not believe as deeply. It shows you evidence, and you no longer bow with the same obedience. That is freedom beginning. And as freedom begins within, the outer world must rearrange. It has no choice, for the old world depended upon the old state, and the old state depended upon your continued occupancy. When occupancy changes, the world begins to lose its foundation. New events, new movements, new conversations, new interpretations, new opportunities, new feelings arise because you are no longer standing where you stood. Reaction keeps you in the old world. Assumption is the bridge into the new. Now let me give you another image. Imagine two shores divided by a river. On one shore is the old reality. There are familiar houses there, familiar streets, familiar voices, familiar disappointments. You know that shore well. You know where fear lives. You know where doubt sits. You know the road that leads to the same old conclusion. On the other shore is the new reality. It may not yet be visible to the senses, but inwardly you know it exists. There is peace there. There is belonging there. There is the fulfilled state there. The bridge between the two shores is assumption, not effort, not panic, not argument, not proof. Assumption. Each time you react, you walk back toward the old shore. Each time you assume, you step onto the bridge. At first, the bridge may seem delicate because you are not accustomed to walking it. But with each assumption, it becomes stronger. With each return to the new state, it becomes more natural. With each refusal to ask the old world who you are, you move farther across. The crossing is not made by force, it is made by loyalty. What are you loyal to tonight? Are you loyal to evidence or to assumption? Are you loyal to what appeared or to what is accepted within? Are you loyal to the old mood or to the new state? Are you loyal to yesterday's name or to the I am you now choose? This question is not meant to disturb you, it is meant to awaken you. Because the crossing happens by changing your inner loyalty. The crossing happens when you stop asking the old reality, who you are. You may say, I am chosen. While evidence seems uncertain, that is crossing. You may say, I am free. While remnants of the old world appear, that is crossing. You may say, I am already inside my new reality, while the senses still report the old. That is crossing. You may feel the old reaction rise, and then choose the new assumption anyway. That is crossing. The inner crossing is often quiet. No one sees it. No one applauds it. The room does not change in that instant. The night does not announce what has happened. But in consciousness, a kingdom has shifted. You have stopped taking orders from the old world. You have begun to live under the authority of assumption. And that is the beginning of all visible change. Tonight, you cross from evidence to assumption. Let the words become very personal now. Evidence may say one thing, but assumption is your creative choice. Evidence may show what has been, but assumption declares what is. Evidence may be loud, but it is not first. Assumption is first, because consciousness is first. Evidence is the harvest. Assumption is the seed. Evidence is the echo. Assumption is the voice. Evidence is the shadow. Assumption is the form. Do not let the harvest of an old seed convince you that no new seed can be planted. This is where many lose heart. They plant a new assumption and immediately look at the old harvest. They say nothing has changed, but they are looking at what belongs to a former state. A farmer does not place seed in the earth and then complain that the field still shows yesterday's soil. He knows what he has planted. He allows the process. He does not dig up the seed every hour to ask whether it is becoming. He trusts the law of growth. You must trust the law of consciousness. Assume the state. Return to it. Sleep in it. Let it take root. Do not keep asking the old reality to confirm what the new state has not yet had time to express. The old reality is not your judge. It is only the remainder of former occupancy. Reaction keeps you in the old world. Now I want to show you what reaction looks like in secret, because many reactions are not visible to others. You may appear calm outwardly, while inwardly you have returned to the old state. Someone speaks a word, and inwardly you shrink. A memory rises, and inwardly you agree with defeat. A delay comes, and inwardly you begin the old prophecy. This is reaction. It may be silent, but it is creative. Assumption too may be silent. You may not speak a word outwardly, and yet inwardly you stand as one who knows. A delay comes, and inwardly you remain in the end. A memory rises, and inwardly you say, that is no longer my state. A person is silent, and inwardly you do not abandon yourself. An old fear moves through the body, and inwardly you remain faithful to the new identity. No one sees this, but the deep sees. Consciousness receives, and the world in time answers. This is why the work is hidden. It is done in the secret place. It is done where only you and the Father within are present, and the Father who sees in secret rewards openly. For the inner acceptance must become outer expression. Assumption is the bridge into the new. Do not make this bridge complicated. It is crossed by a simple inward act. See the old appearance. Refuse its old meaning. Return to the chosen state. Feel, even slightly, that the new state is true. Rest there. That is all. The mind may want 1,000 steps, because 1,000 steps make it feel important. But the law is simple. See, withdraw, assume, rest. See the old appearance. Withdraw belief from its verdict. Assume the new state. Rest as the one who belongs there. This can be done in a breath. An old thought rises, I am still the same. See it, withdraw. Assume I am already the new self. Rest. An old fear rises. Tomorrow will repeat yesterday. See it, withdraw. Assume the world I wake into is born from the state I sleep in. Rest. An old memory rises. This always happens. See it, withdraw. Assume that belonged to the old state. I now occupy another. Rest. This is the inner crossing. Tonight, you do not need to solve the old world. You need to stop receiving identity from it. You do not need to debate every appearance. You need to cease asking appearance for truth. You do not need to force yourself into excitement. You need to assume quietly, and the quieter it becomes, the deeper it often goes. The crossing happens when you stop asking the old reality who you are. Let the body help you now. When reaction rises, the body tightens, because it believes it must defend the old self. But as you assume the new state, let the body learn that it no longer needs to defend that identity. Let the shoulders soften. Let the jaw release. Let the hands open. Let the breath descend. Let the face become peaceful. The body is learning that the old world is no longer master. The body is learning the new loyalty. Perhaps you can say inwardly, with each exhale, I do not react. I assume. Not as a harsh command, but as a gentle turning. I do not react. I assume. I do not ask evidence. I assume. I do not return to the old world. I assume. I cross from evidence to assumption. Let this phrase become a little bridge in itself. I do not react. I assume. Again, I do not react. I assume. Again, softer. I do not react. I assume. There is a calm power in this. Not because the words are magic, but because they remind you of your position. They return you to cause. They bring you back from the shadow to the light, from the mirror to the face, from the old world to the new state. Now I want you to understand that assumption does not mean you never notice the outer world. It means you no longer let the outer world have final authority. You may attend to what is before you in practical ways, but inwardly you remain loyal to the state. If a letter must be answered, answer it from the new self. If a conversation must be had, have it from the new self. If an action is required, take it from the new self. Action is not the enemy. Reaction is the old bondage. Action from assumption is part of the bridge. Reaction says, I must act because I am afraid. Assumption says, I act from the state of one who already belongs. Reaction says, this action must save me. Assumption says, the state is cause. This action may be one of its natural expressions. Reaction is frantic. Assumption is clear. Reaction belongs to the old reality. Assumption belongs to the new. Assumption is the bridge into the new. Now feel the sacredness of tonight. You are lying in the very hour when this crossing can be made most gently. The day is losing power. The old evidence is not as sharp. The room is quieter. The body is becoming still. The conscious mind, which loves to argue with appearances, is becoming weary. This is a perfect hour to stop reacting. You do not need to answer the old world tonight. You do not need to defend the old identity. You can let the old evidence remain unanswered and move inwardly into assumption. Let the old world speak, if it must. Let it say, look at what has been. You answer, I know what I have assumed. Let it say, nothing has changed. You answer, the cause has changed. Let it say, you are still the same. You answer, I no longer ask you who I am. Let it say, wait for proof. You answer, I enter by assumption. This is not argument. It is inner authority. You are not trying to convince the old reality. You are simply no longer receiving its verdict. Tonight you cross from evidence to assumption, and as you cross, something begins to loosen. The old state loses its magnetism. The old evidence loses some of its sting. The old thoughts may still pass, but they are not enthroned. The new state begins to feel possible, then near, then quietly real. You begin to understand that reality was never as fixed as it appeared. It was loyal to your state. And if it was loyal to the old state, it must also be loyal to the new. Every reaction you refuse to become is a step out of the old world. Every assumption you return to is a step into the new. Do not despise small steps. A kingdom may turn upon a single inward refusal. A life may change because one night a man stopped asking the old world for his name. Let that be tonight. Let this be the night you stop asking appearances, whether you are free. Let this be the night you stop asking delay, whether you are chosen. Let this be the night you stop asking memory, whether you can become new. Let this be the night you stop asking the old reality who you are. The crossing happens when you stop asking the old reality who you are. Now ask the I am, ask the inner being, ask imagination, and answer from the state you choose. Who am I? I am the one who belongs to the new reality. Where am I? I am already within the state. What is true? What I assume in consciousness is true first. What must happen? The world must follow the state I occupy. Feel how the authority returns inwardly. You are no longer scattered among appearances. You are gathered in the I am. You are no longer begging the mirror. You are changing the face. You are no longer fighting shadows. You are occupying the form that casts a new one. Reaction keeps you in the old world. Assumption is the bridge into the new. Now let the teaching become quiet enough for sleep. You do not have to think about it with effort. Let it sink beneath thought. Let it become a mood, a knowing, a soft inward posture. You are crossing, not by force, not by visible travel, by loyalty, by assumption, by refusing to receive identity from the old world. If the body is tired, let it be tired. The crossing can still happen. If the mind is drowsy, let it be drowsy. The deep receives feeling more readily than argument. If old thoughts pass, let them pass. You are not required to board every thought that comes by. Remain inwardly with the new state. I do not react. I assume. I do not ask evidence. I assume. I do not ask the old reality who I am. I assume. I cross from evidence to assumption. Let the words soften. I assume. I enter. I belong. I am. And as the night receives you, let it receive not the old reaction, but the new assumption. Let it receive not the old question, but the new answer. Let it receive not the old identity begging for proof, but the new identity resting in consciousness. For the bridge into the new is not built by struggle, it is built by assumption. And tonight, as you move nearer to sleep, you may cross quietly, completely, inwardly, from the old world of reaction into the new reality of the assumed state. Now, as you cross from reaction to assumption, I want you to understand something most people overlook. They try to assume with the mind while the body remains loyal to the old world. They speak words of freedom while breathing like prisoners. They say, "It is done," while the shoulders are still lifted in fear. They say, "I am safe," while the stomach is still tight against life. They say, "I am chosen," while the heart is guarded, expecting rejection. And then they wonder why the state does not feel real. But the body is part of your confession. The body reveals the world you believe you live in. Let this be understood gently. The body reveals the world you believe you live in. A man may hide many things from others, but the body often speaks the state he is wearing. The old reality has a body. The old self has a posture. The old world has a breath. When one lives long in fear, the body learns fear. When one lives long in waiting, the body learns suspense. When one lives long in struggle, the body learns effort, even while lying still. And so, even in the quiet of night, the old reality may continue as tension in the flesh. This is why you must not treat the body as separate from the imaginal act. Before the world changes, the body can learn the fulfilled state. Before the world changes, the body can learn the fulfilled state. The outer room may still be the same bed may hold you, the same walls may surround you, the same night may be outside the window, but the body can begin to practice another world. It can begin to rest as though the new reality were already true. It can begin to breathe as one who is safe, soften as one who is loved, lie still as one who is chosen, release as one who is supplied, settle as one who is free. The new self breathes differently. That is not a small statement. The new self breathes differently. The one who already belongs to the new reality does not breathe as though chased. He does not hold the breath high in the chest as though waiting for the next blow. He does not pull the body tight around an old fear. He breathes with a certain permission. He breathes as one who has arrived inwardly. He breathes as one who no longer needs to defend the old identity. So tonight, let the body begin to rehearse the new reality. Let the body rehearse the new reality. Do not force it. Do not command it harshly. The body has carried many states for you. It has tightened when you thought you were in danger. It has guarded you when you believed you might be wounded. It has stayed awake in fear when you thought worry was necessary. Do not curse it now. Teach it gently. Say to it without words if you like, "You do not need to live in the old world tonight. You may rest in the new." Begin with the face. The face often carries the world a man believes in. The brow holds the questions. The eyes hold the watchfulness. The mouth holds the arguments not spoken. The jaw holds the will to endure. Let the face become the face of one who is not waiting for danger. Let the brows smooth as though the answer has already come. Let the eyes rest behind the lids as though they no longer need to search the horizon for proof. Let the mouth soften as though the old defense has ended. Let the jaw unclench as though life is not something you must bite against. This is not merely relaxation. It is assumption made bodily. You are teaching the body, I live in another world now. Now let the throat soften. Many have carried unspoken words there, pleadings, explanations, defenses, apologies, old names. The throat becomes tight when a man believes he must justify his existence. But the new self does not beg to exist. The new self does not plead to be accepted. The new self belongs, so let the throat be free. Let it soften as though nothing needs to be proved tonight. Let the breath pass through it easily. Let the inner voice become quieter, deeper, more certain. The body reveals the world you believe you live in. If the throat has been tense, it may have believed it lives in a world where it must explain. Now let it live in a world where it is already understood. If the face has been guarded, it may have believed it lives in a world where it must protect itself. Now let it live in a world where it is safe. If the jaw has been clenched, it may have believed it lives in a world where it must endure. Now let it live in a world where it can receive. Now let the shoulders drop. The shoulders are faithful servants. They have carried invisible loads. They have carried tomorrow before tomorrow arrived. They have carried words others spoke, duties not yet done, fears not yet resolved, identities not yet released. And perhaps even now they are slightly lifted, as though expecting another burden to be placed upon them. But the one who already belongs to the new reality does not hold tomorrow on his shoulders tonight. Let the shoulders sink. Let them become heavy. Let them fall away from the ears. Let them say without speech, I am no longer carrying the old world. Before the world changes, the body can learn the fulfilled state. What would the shoulders of the fulfilled one feel like? Not the shoulders of the one striving to become fulfilled. Not the shoulders of the one waiting to be rescued. The shoulders of one who has entered the state. They would be lower, softer, released, not collapsed in defeat, but settled in completion. Let the body try that now. Let it rehearse the new reality. Let it discover that the new self has another posture. The new self breathes differently. Now bring your attention to the chest. Do not do this with force. Only notice the chest may be tight from years of expecting the world to wound, delay, deny, or demand. The chest may have become the room where old fear sits. But tonight, the chest can learn another truth. It can open, not dramatically, not with effort, but with quiet permission. Let the breath enter a little lower. Let the ribs soften. Let the heart no longer lean forward in search of evidence. Let it rest back into the fulfilled state. If your new reality is one of being loved, let the chest feel loved now. Not because someone has spoken outwardly this hour, but because love is a state, and the state may be entered. Let the chest receive warmth. Let it stop bracing for rejection. Let it stop preparing for silence. Let it stop interpreting absence as sentence. Let the body of the loved one begin here. If your new reality is one of being safe, let the chest feel safe now. Let it stop scanning. Let it stop tightening against imagined trouble. Let it feel as though the night itself is kind. Let it feel as though the bed is not merely furniture, but a place of inward refuge. Let it feel that nothing must be solved before rest can be allowed. If your new reality is one of being established, let the chest feel established now, not inflated, not proud, established, settled, rooted, dignified, like a tree that does not ask the wind whether it may stand. Let the chest become still in that dignity. Let the body rehearse the new reality. Now let the stomach soften. Many men carry the old world in the stomach. They call it intuition, but often it is only old fear made familiar. The stomach tightens before a letter is opened. It tightens before a conversation. It tightens when tomorrow is imagined. It tightens when the old self believes life is unpredictable, unsafe, or scarce. And because the sensation is so familiar, a man believes it is wisdom. But often it is only the old state speaking through the flesh. Tonight, do not ask the stomach to guard the old reality. Let it soften. Let the belly release. Let the inward grip loosen. Let the body know that it does not need to hold life together from beneath the ribs. If the new reality is one of supply, let the stomach feel supplied. The supplied one does not clench against tomorrow. The supplied one does not contract before sleep, as though the night must be used for worry. The supplied one rests because provision belongs to his state. Let that be felt not merely as a thought, but as a softening, a release, a lower breath, a body that says, I am not empty, I am held. If the new reality is one of freedom, let the stomach feel free. Let it stop preparing for old chains. Let it stop rehearsing confinement. Let it loosen as though the inner door has opened. Before the outer door appears, the body can know what freedom feels like. The body reveals the world you believe you live in. Now let the hands become quiet. The hands reveal the old self as well. Hands that grip the sheet, hands that curl, hands that hold tension in the fingers, hands that seem to be trying to manage invisible things. The old self tries to hold the world together, the new self receives. The old self clutches, the new self opens. The old self reaches from lack, the new self rests in possession. So let the hands open a little, let the fingers loosen. Let the palms become soft. Let the hands no longer rehearse struggle. Imagine, if you wish, that the hands are no longer empty hands begging the world, but quiet hands resting after receiving, not excited, not dramatic, just resting. The hands of one who belongs, the hands of one who does not need to grasp, the hands of one whose world is already forming from within. The new self breathes differently. The new self also holds differently. The new self rests differently. Now let the legs be heavy. Let them no longer prepare to run after the old world. Let the feet release the need to chase. There is nowhere to go in the outer world tonight. The crossing is inward. You do not need to run toward the new reality. You need to enter the state. The body may be still, and yet consciousness can move. The legs may rest, and yet the world may begin to change. Let the whole lower body become heavy, supported, quiet. Before the world changes, the body can learn the fulfilled state. Now, as the body softens, I want you to see that this is not merely comfort, it is instruction. The subconscious receives the language of feeling, and the body, when it relaxes into a state, helps make that state believable. If you try to say, I am safe, while every part of the body says, I am threatened, the words may feel distant. But if the body begins to soften, if the breath slows, if the jaw releases, if the shoulders fall, then the sentence, I am safe, begins to find a home. The body becomes the temple of the assumption. It does not create alone. Consciousness is the cause, but the body can agree with consciousness. The body can rehearse what the new world feels like. The body can become the first visible sign that you have left one state and entered another. Before anyone else treats you differently, the body can treat you differently. Before the letter arrives, before the conversation changes, before the door opens, before the outer world knows what has happened, the body can know. And this is powerful, because when the body knows, the state feels less like imagination and more like reality. Let the body rehearse the new reality. Now ask yourself softly, how would my body feel if I truly belonged to the new reality? Do not answer with long thoughts. Let the body answer. If you were already safe, how would the body lie here? If you were already chosen, how would the heart rest? If you were already supplied, how would the stomach soften? If you were already free, how would the breath move? If you were already loved, how would the chest open? If you were already established, how would the shoulders settle? If you were already inside your new reality, what tension would no longer be necessary? Let the unnecessary tension go. Not all at once, perhaps. Do not force it, let it melt by recognition. The body often releases what it knows is no longer needed. You do not need to fight tension. You introduce the new state, and tension begins to lose its purpose. The body of the old reality may have been tense because it believed it had to survive. The body of the new reality can soften because it knows it belongs. The body of the old reality may have been guarded because it expected attack. The body of the new reality can open because it knows it is safe. The body of the old reality may have been tired because it carried tomorrow too soon. The body of the new reality can rest because it trusts the bridge. The body of the old reality may have been anxious because it asked appearances for identity. The body of the new reality can breathe because it receives identity from within. The body reveals the world you believe you live in. Then let the body reveal the new world tonight. Let the breath reveal peace. Let the face reveal belonging. Let the shoulders reveal release. Let the chest reveal safety. Let the stomach reveal provision. Let the hands reveal receiving. Let the entire body become a quiet prophecy of the world to come. This is not fantasy. This is living from the end in the temple of the body. If you would wake inside a new reality, then before sleep, Let the body feel the atmosphere of that reality. Do not wait for the outer world to change your nerves. Change your inner state and let the nerves learn it first. Do not wait for circumstance to relax you. Relax as one who has already entered. Do not wait for proof to breathe. Breathe as one who knows. The new self breathes differently. Let that breath begin now. Slow, easy, unforced. A breath that does not beg. A breath that does not chase. A breath that does not prepare for rejection. A breath that does not brace against tomorrow. A breath that belongs to the new self. Inhale as though receiving the atmosphere of the new reality. Exhale as though releasing the old body of fear. Inhale as one who belongs. Exhale as one who no longer fights. Inhale as one who is safe. Exhale as one who lays down the old world. Again, without counting, without effort, without turning this into a task. Let the breath be natural. Let it find its own depth. The new self does not strain to breathe differently. It simply no longer has to hold the old breath. Now bring to mind only lightly the version of you who already wakes inside the new reality. Do not see this one far away. Feel this one in the body now. How does this one rest? How does this one receive the night? How does this one let the bed hold him? How does this one think of tomorrow? How does this one respond to silence? How does this one breathe? Let your body borrow that answer. If that one would rest more deeply now. If that one would release the jaw, release it now. If that one would soften the heart, soften it now. If that one would let the stomach be at peace, allow it now. If that one would stop guarding against life, stop guarding now, even a little. This is assumption in the body. Before the world changes, the body can learn the fulfilled state. And when the body learns it, sleep receives it more easily. The mind may say, is it true? But the body softened into the state says, it feels true enough to rest. And that is often all that is needed before sleep. Not a philosophical victory, not a perfect argument. A body resting in the feeling of the fulfilled state. A body that no longer contradicts the assumption. A body that whispers to the subconscious, this is where we live now. Let the body say that tonight. This is where we live now. Not in fear, not in waiting, not in old reaction, not in yesterday's evidence. This is where we live now. In safety, in belonging, in provision, in freedom, in love, in the new reality. Let the body rehearse the new reality. Now perhaps some tension remains. That is all right. Do not make an enemy of it. Some old states leave like guests who depart slowly. Let them. You do not need to force every sensation to disappear. You need only stop calling the tension your truth. You may feel a tightness and still assume safety. You may feel tired and still assume renewal. You may feel an old fear and still assume belonging. The body may be learning. Be patient with it. Speak to it as you would speak to a child who has been frightened for a long time. You would not scold the child for trembling. You would not say, how dare you still be afraid? You would sit beside the child and let your presence teach safety. Do the same with the body. Let consciousness sit beside the body and teach it the new world. Softly, kindly, repeatedly. The body will learn. The body reveals the world you believe you live in. And as belief changes, the body changes its testimony. The breath becomes deeper. The eyes become softer. The face changes. The manner changes. The voice changes. The way you enter a room changes. The way you receive a word changes. The way you meet the morning changes. And because the world responds to the state you occupy, these bodily changes are not meaningless. They are signs of inner relocation. You are moving, not outwardly yet perhaps, but inwardly, from the body of the old reality into the body of the new. Now let this become even simpler. The old self was braced. The new self rests. The old self guarded. The new self receives. The old self held the breath. The new self breathes. The old self waited for permission. The new self belongs. The old self carried tomorrow. The new self sleeps in the end. Let the body choose the new self. Let the face choose. Let the breath choose. Let the shoulders choose. Let the heart choose. Let the hands choose. Let the whole body enter the state before the world has changed. For this is how change begins. First invisibly, then bodily, then emotionally, then in thought, then in expectation, then in behavior, then in the bridge of incidents, then in facts. The world calls the final stage reality, but the wise man knows reality began in consciousness. Before the world changes, the body can learn the fulfilled state. Now, as the night deepens, let your body become a quiet declaration, not a declaration shouted to the world, but a declaration made to the deep. The jaw relaxed declares, I no longer fight the old reality. The shoulders lowered declare, I no longer carry the old burden. The breath softened declares, I am safe enough to receive. The hands open declare, I no longer grasp from lack. The chest at ease declares, I belong to the new state. This is prayer. Not merely words, a whole body praying the fulfilled state, a whole body saying, it is done, a whole body saying, I am already there, a whole body saying, I sleep inside the new reality. Let it pray this way tonight. Let the body become still enough to believe. Let the mind grow quiet enough to follow. Let sleep come not to the old body of fear, but to the new body of assumption. You need not force sleep. You need only become safe enough to allow it. You need not force the new reality. You need only embody the state that belongs to it. You need not make the world change in this moment. You need only let the body feel what would be true if it had already changed. The new self breathes differently. So breathe now as the new self. The new self rests differently. So rest now as the new self. The new self receives differently. So receive the night as the new self. The new self does not wait to be told, it belongs. It belongs inwardly first. And as the body accepts this belonging, even softly, even slightly, something sacred is happening. You are no longer merely thinking of a new reality. You are beginning to live from it. You are letting it have weight in the body, breath in the lungs, softness in the face, peace in the heart. You are giving it a place to dwell. Let the new reality dwell in the body tonight. Let it dwell in the breath. Let it dwell in the quiet hands. Let it dwell in the softened chest. Let it dwell in the heavy limbs. Let it dwell in the calm face. Let it dwell in sleep. And as you drift nearer to the deep, remember this. The world does not have to change before the state can be felt. The body can feel it first. The body can rehearse it first. The body can sleep in it first. And what is slept in, felt in, assumed in the deep, must begin to find its expression in the world of form. The body reveals the world you believe you live in. Tonight, let it reveal the new one. Now, as the body begins to rehearse the new reality, as the breath begins to belong to another state, I want to speak to the part of you that still wants to ask, is it real? For this question, though it may appear innocent, often conceals the old dependence upon the outer world. A man says, is it real? And he believes he is merely seeking assurance. But very often, he is asking the old reality to certify the new one. He is asking yesterday's shadow to bless tomorrow's light. He is asking the mirror, still reflecting the former face, to give him permission to believe the face has changed. Do not ask the old world to certify the new one. Let that sentence enter you with quiet firmness. Do not ask the old world to certify the new one. The old world cannot certify the new one because it belongs to another state. It is the outpicturing of what has already been accepted, already worn, already repeated. It is the report of former occupancy. To ask it whether your new reality is real is like asking an old letter to tell you what you are writing now. The letter may tell you what was once sent. It cannot tell you what is now being composed in the secret chamber of imagination. The senses report what was. Assumption declares what is becoming. This is the proper order. The senses report what was. Assumption declares what is becoming. The senses are not evil. They are not to be hated. They simply have a limited office. They show you what has hardened into appearance. They show you the harvest of previous states. They show you what has been objectified. But they do not show you the seed now being planted. They do not show you the invisible movement taking place beneath consciousness. They do not show you the bridge forming in the unseen. They cannot report the new state until the new state has clothed itself in form. Therefore, if you go to the senses too soon and say, is it real? They can only answer according to what has already appeared. They will show you the old room, the old condition, the old silence, the old delay, the old face of circumstance. And if you believe their report to be final, you will leave the new state and return to the old one. This is why checking can be dangerous. Not because one glance outward has power over God within you, but because checking often means you have left the throne and gone to the servant for permission. You do not enter by proof, you enter by acceptance. This must be understood. You do not enter by proof, you enter by acceptance. If proof were required first, no one could ever enter a new state. Proof belongs to the state already externalized. Acceptance belongs to the creative moment. The man who waits for proof before accepting remains bound to what is already visible. But the man who accepts inwardly before proof appears becomes the father of new proof. The world says, show me, and I will believe. But the law says, believe. The world says, let the facts change first, and then I will rest. But the law says, rest in the fulfilled state, and facts must change. The world says, give me evidence, and I will enter. But the law says, enter, and evidence will be born. Reality becomes real to the one who lives from it, not to the one who visits it for a moment and then runs back to the old world asking, did anything happen? Not to the one who plants a seed and immediately tears up the soil to examine the root, not to the one who says, I accept, and then spends the night measuring whether the outer world has moved. Reality becomes real to the one who lives from it, returns to it, sleeps in it, speaks inwardly from it, breathes as one who belongs to it, and refuses to take final instruction from what was. Now, I know the habit of checking, I know it well. The mind says, let me only look once. Let me only see whether anything has changed. Let me only test the world and see if it has begun to respond. But beneath this little test, there is often fear. The old self wants reassurance, and because it has not yet learned to receive reassurance from within, it goes outward. It says, tell me I am safe. Tell me I am chosen. Tell me I am free. Tell me I am becoming new. And if the outer world is silent, the old self concludes that nothing is happening. But silence is not proof of failure. Delay is not proof of absence. The old appearance is not proof that the new state is false. The senses report what was. Assumption declares what is becoming. You must learn to respect the unseen interval. Every seed has an unseen interval. The earth covers it. The eye cannot watch its first movement. If a man, not understanding growth, were to uncover the seed every hour and ask, is it real? Is it growing? He would destroy the very process he longs to prove. He would mistake invisibility for inactivity. But the wise gardener knows that the seed moves first in secret. He does not demand that the soil certify the harvest before the seed has done its hidden work. So it is with assumption. The new reality moves first in consciousness. It moves first as a shift of identity. It moves first as a change in feeling. It moves first as a new inner speech, a new bodily atmosphere, a new peace, a new refusal to react as the old self. These are not nothing. These are the first signs of creation. The world may not yet have dressed itself fully in the new form, but the cause has changed. And when the cause changes and is sustained, the effect must follow. Do not ask the old world to certify the new one. If you ask the old world, it will answer with old language. It will say, look at what has not yet appeared. It will say, look at the familiar condition. It will say, look at the delay. It will say, look at the same room, the same body, the same circumstance, the same silence. But none of these has the authority to name the state you are now occupying. They are echoes, they are not the voice. Your assumption is the voice. The echo may still be heard for a while after the voice has changed. But if you keep listening to the echo and asking it what you said, you will be confused. Know what you have spoken inwardly. Know what you have assumed. Know what you have accepted in the I am. Then let the echo fade in its appointed time. This is inner authority. Inner authority does not mean you never notice appearances. It means appearances no longer hold the crown. You may see them, but you do not kneel. You may hear them, but you do not obey. You may acknowledge that they are present, but you do not let them dictate who you are. You understand that they are the last page of an old chapter, not the first page of the new one. You do not enter by proof. You enter by acceptance. Now consider how a man behaves when he has truly accepted something. If he knows a letter has been sent, he does not stand at the door in panic every moment, trembling over whether the postman exists. If he knows a matter has been settled, he does not continue to argue it inwardly, as though no settlement were made. If he knows he is invited, he does not keep asking the host whether the invitation is real. Acceptance brings a certain rest. The mind may still move, but its old desperation has been taken away. In the same way, when you accept the new reality as a state, you do not need to check every hour whether the world has obeyed. You remain faithful to the state. You let the world catch up. You allow the bridge to form. You stop asking the old evidence to approve the inner act. You stop digging up the seed. You stop calling doubt wisdom. This is not carelessness. It is faith. Faith is not pretending that appearances do not exist. Faith is knowing their place. Faith says, you are not first. Faith says to the senses, you may report what was, but you cannot decide what I am. Faith says to the old world, you may still appear, but you are no longer my source. Faith says to assumption, you are the creative act, and I will live from you. The senses report what was. Assumption declares what is becoming. Now, because this is meant to be heard near sleep, I want you to let go of the need to prove anything tonight. Proof belongs to the outer day. Acceptance belongs to the inner night. Do not carry a courtroom into the bed. Do not place the new state on trial. Do not summon witnesses from yesterday to testify against tomorrow. Do not ask memory whether you may become new. Do not ask old facts whether your assumption is allowed. The night is not a courtroom, it is a womb. What you place in it will grow. If you place the question, is it real? With fear behind it, the night receives uncertainty. If you place the feeling, it is accepted, the night receives instruction. If you place the old habit of checking, the night receives waiting. If you place the state of belonging, the night receives the new self. Therefore, give the night acceptance, give it rest, give it the inner knowing that does not need the old world to nod its head. Do not ask the old world to certify the new one. The old world may not know you yet. It may still call you by the old name. It may still present the old face. It may still carry the tone of former states. Let it be late. The outer world is always late. It arrives after the state. It is the shadow, not the sun. It is the reflection, not the face. It is the harvest, not the seed. You are working at the level of seed now. And the seed does not need the harvest to certify it. The seed only needs to be planted and left in the right condition. Your assumption is the seed. Sleep is the soil. Feeling is the life. Persistence is the season. And the world is the... Enter the seed. Enter the state. Let the deep do its work. Reality becomes real to the one who lives from it. This is why you must begin living from the new reality before the senses agree. Living from it does not always mean outward action at once. Sometimes it means a change in how you lie in bed. Sometimes it means you no longer rehearse old conversations. Sometimes it means you stop imagining the worst before sleep. Sometimes it means that when a doubt rises, you do not treat it as the voice of God. Sometimes it means you speak inwardly as one who belongs instead of one who waits. These little movements are living from it. Do not despise the little movements. A new world often begins as a small refusal to believe the old one. A new life begins as one quiet assumption held when the old evidence argues. A new identity begins when you stop checking whether the old world approves. This may look small outwardly, but inwardly it is a revolution. Now ask yourself softly, why do I ask if it is real? Do I ask because I want to know truth? Or do I ask because I am afraid to trust what I have assumed? Do I ask because I am still looking outward for authority? Do I ask because I have not yet allowed myself to live from the new state? Do not answer harshly. Let the question reveal the habit. If you see that you have been asked, you have found the place where power was leaking. You have found the door through which you kept returning to the old state. Now you may close it gently. You may stop asking. You may begin accepting. You do not enter by proof. You enter by acceptance. Now feel the difference in the body. Asking, is it real, from fear often tightens the body. The chest leans forward. The stomach contracts. The mind becomes alert, searching, scanning, waiting. But acceptance feels different. Acceptance softens the body. It lets the breath deepen. It lets the shoulders fall. It says, I do not need to search the old world tonight. I know what I have accepted. That softening is not weakness. It is evidence that you have returned to cause. Let the body leave the question. Let the chest stop asking. Let the stomach stop asking. Let the brow stop asking. Let the hands stop asking. Let the whole body rest in acceptance. If the old question arises, is it real? Answer from the new state, it is real in consciousness, and consciousness is cause. If the old question asks, where is the proof? Answer, proof follows occupancy. If the old question asks, when will I see it? Answer, I am living from it now. If the old question asks, what if nothing changes? Answer, the state is changing and the world must follow. This is not a debate, it is inner correction. The senses report what was. Assumption declares what is becoming. Let the senses rest tonight. They have done their work. They have reported the old harvest. Thank them if you wish, and release them from authority. The eyes need not search, the ears need not strain, the mind need not inspect every corner of life for proof. Tonight you are not a detective of the old world, you are the occupant of the new state, and an occupant does not need permission to live in his own house. If you live in a house, you do not stand at the door each night asking, is this truly mine? You move through it. You sit. You rest. You breathe there. Your occupancy proves itself by being lived. So inhabit the new state in the same way. Do not stand outside it asking whether it is real. Enter. Sit in it. Rest in it. Sleep in it. Let it become your inward home. Reality becomes real to the one who lives from it. The old you interpreted from it. You slept in it. You repeated it. You felt it as natural. You did not ask every morning, is this old state real? You assumed it so quickly that it felt like fact. Now do the same consciously with the new, not frantically, not in fear, but with the quiet discipline of one who understands law. If the old reality became solid through repeated occupancy, the new reality will become solid through repeated occupancy. If the old state hardened by being lived from, the new state will hardened by being lived from. If the old identity became familiar because you stopped questioning it, the new identity will become familiar when you stop questioning it every moment and begin wearing it as your own. Do not ask the old world to certify the new one. Now, this does not mean you force yourself never to notice doubt. Doubt may come. Let it come as weather. Do not make it king. Do not say, doubt is here, therefore the new reality is false. Clouds do not disprove the sun. A passing sensation does not disprove a state. A question arising in the mind does not cancel assumption unless you accept the question as authority. Let doubt pass through awareness. Remain in the state. If you must answer doubt, answer it with occupancy. Not with long arguments, not with panic, not with 20 explanations. Simply return to the... If the state is being loved, feel loved. If the state is freedom, feel free. If the state is supply, feel supplied. If the state is your new reality, feel yourself already inside it. This return is your answer. You do not enter by proof, you enter by acceptance. And acceptance is often quiet. It may not feel like triumph. It may feel like a simple end of argument, a little inward rest, a sense that you no longer need to consult the old evidence, a feeling that the matter is settled in the only place where anything is ever settled first. Do not underestimate this quiet. The deepest assumptions are often quiet because they are natural. A man does not shout his own name to prove it is his. He knows it. In the same way, the new state becomes powerful when it becomes less theatrical and more known. Let it be known. Let it become the quiet fact of your inner life. Let the body rest because it is known. Let the mind stop asking because it is known. Let sleep receive it because it is known. Reality becomes real to the one who lives from it. Now let us make this a simple practice for the night. When the question, is it real, arises, do not follow it into argument. Let it be a bell that calls you back to acceptance. The question rises, and you say inwardly, I enter by acceptance. The question rises again, and you say, I do not ask the old world to serve. The question rises again, and you say, the senses report what was. Assumption declares what is becoming. Then return to the feeling. Return to the body of the new self. Return to the breath of the new self. Return to the inner room of the new reality. Return as often as needed, and do it gently. Each return is not failure. Each return is not failure. Each return is occupancy. Each return teaches the subconscious where you live. Each return now as the room grows quieter, allow the need for proof to become unnecessary. Proof will come in its season. But tonight, proof is not your work. Acceptance is your work. Occupancy is your work. Living from the new state is your work. You are not here to interrogate the seed. You are here to plant it. You are not here to ask the old harvest what tomorrow must be. You are here to become the one from whom another harvest grows. The senses report what was. What was may still have a voice. What is becoming begins in silence. What was may still have evidence. What is becoming begins as feeling. What was may still seem solid. What is becoming begins as assumption. And if you remain faithful to what is becoming, it too must become visible. This is the law. Do not ask the old world to certify the new one. Do not ask yesterday to bless tomorrow. Do not ask the shadow to approve the light. Do not ask the mirror to lead the... Do not ask old evidence to name the new self. Accept, enter, occupy, live from it, sleep in it. Let the deep receive it. Now let the question fade. Is it real? Need not be answered by the senses tonight. It is answered by your acceptance. It is real in consciousness because you accept it. It is real as a state because you occupy it. It is real as a seed because you plant it. It is real as a future harvest because every seed bears. You enter by acceptance. So enter now, not loudly, not dramatically. Enter quietly. Enter by no longer asking. Enter by no longer checking. Enter by no longer placing the new reality before the old judge. Enter by resting as though the inner verdict has already been given. It is done in consciousness, and what is done in consciousness, held with naturalness, must find its way into form. Let the senses sleep now. Let the old need for proof. Let the new state remain. Let the body remain in the breath of the new self. Let the night receive not uncertainty, but acceptance. Reality becomes real to the one who lives from it. Tonight, live from it inwardly. Tonight, sleep from it. Tonight, stop asking if it is real and begin being the one for whom it is natural. The old world does not need to certify you. The new reality is entered by acceptance, and acceptance carried into sleep becomes the beginning of the world you will wake to meet. Now, having stopped asking the old world to certify the new one, I want to bring you to something so intimate, so constant, so near to you, that you may have overlooked its power. I speak of the conversation you carry within yourself, not the conversation you have with others, not the words spoken aloud in the room, not the phrases people hear from your lips. I speak of that hidden speech, that quiet current beneath the day, that inward murmur by which a man tells himself who he is, where he is, what is possible, what is delayed, what is denied, what is coming, and what can never be. Your inner conversation is the language of the reality you occupy. Let that be heard gently, but let it be heard seriously. Your inner conversation is the language of the reality you occupy. A man may claim he is entering a new world, but if his inner speech still belongs to the old one, he has not yet fully crossed. He may say, I am new, but inwardly he speaks as the old self. He may say, it is done, but inwardly he whispers, not yet. He may say, I am free, but inwardly he repeats the language of bondage. He may say, I am chosen, but inwardly he argues with rejection. And because the inner conversation is continuous, it becomes the atmosphere in which he lives. The outer world hears more than your lips. It hears your state, and your inner conversation reveals your state. Listen carefully to the old self, not so that you may fear it, but so that you may recognize its language. The old self speaks in lack. It says there is not enough, I am not enough, time is not enough, help is not enough, love is not enough, life has not given enough. The old self speaks in delay. It says one day, perhaps, later, maybe. When conditions change, when the world agrees, when someone finally says yes, when I become worthy, the old self speaks in fear. It says, what if it fails? What if nothing changes? What if I am deceiving myself? What if tomorrow proves the same? The old self speaks in unworthiness. It says, others may receive, but not I. Others may enter, but not I. And above all, the old self speaks the language of not yet. Not yet, not mine yet, not here yet, not safe yet, not loved yet, not free yet, not real yet. This phrase, though it may appear harmless, keeps a man standing outside the door of his own fulfilled state. Not yet is the language of distance. Not yet is the language of postponement. Not yet is the old world extending itself into another day. And if you fall asleep with not yet as the last inward speech, then the deep receives delay as an instruction. Do not let the old voice narrate the new life. This is very important. Do not let the old voice narrate the new life. If you have entered a new state, then the old narrator must not be allowed to interpret it. For the old narrator will look upon every new movement and call it danger. It will look upon silence and call it rejection. It will look upon your first peace and call it foolishness. It will look upon your assumption and call it fantasy. It will try to speak over the new state with the vocabulary of the old world. But the new reality has its own language. The new self speaks from completion. It says, it is already settled in consciousness. The new self speaks from ease. It says, I do not force, I inhabit. The new self speaks from certainty. It says, what I accept within. The new self speaks from belonging. It says, I am not outside the door. I am within the state. The new self speaks from quiet possession. It does not plead, it does not beg, it does not bargain, it does not say, please let me in. It says, I am. Speak inwardly as one who already lives there. That is the practice. Speak inwardly as one who already lives there. If you are entering the state of peace, do not speak inwardly as one still preparing. If you are entering the state of love, do not speak inwardly as one expecting abandonment. If you are entering the state of freedom, do not speak inwardly as one counting the old chains. If you are entering the state of provision, do not speak inwardly as one haunted by lack. Speak from the new state, not toward it. Speak as one who has entered, not as one still waiting to be admitted. This does not mean you must fill the mind with endless words. Inner conversation. It is not frantic repetition, it is the inward tone from which you speak to yourself. Sometimes it is a sentence, sometimes it is a feeling behind a sentence, sometimes it is the meaning you give to an event before you even explain it. And that meaning matters greatly. For example, the old self sees a delay and says, there it is not working. The new self sees the same delay and says, the bridge is still forming. The outer appearance is the same for the moment, but the inner conversation is entirely different. One belongs to the old world, the other belongs to the new. The old self hears silence and says, I am forgotten. The new self hears silence and says, I remain chosen. I do not need noise to prove my state. The old self wakes and says, another day, the same as before. The new self wakes and says, this day meets the state I slept in. The old self lies down at night and says, what if nothing changes? The new self lies down and says, the change has begun in consciousness. Change the conversation and you change the world that answers. Do not pass over that. Change the conversation and you change the world that answers. The world answers the state you occupy, and your inner conversation is one of the clearest signs of that state. If the conversation changes sincerely, the state is changing. If the state changes and is sustained, the world must answer differently. A man may move to another city and carry the same inner conversation with him. Soon the new city begins to feel like the old one. He may meet new people and speak to himself in the old way, and soon the new people seem to play old parts. He may begin a new work, enter a new house, form a new acquaintance, and still, if the inner conversation remains unchanged, the old reality finds a new This is why outer change without inner change often disappoints. The narrator remains the same, and therefore the story repeats. But let the narrator change, and the story must change. Your inner conversation is the language of the reality you occupy. Tonight, I want you to listen, not with tension, but with awareness. Listen to the sentences you have been saying in the secret place. Have you been saying, I hope? Have you been saying, when? Have you been saying, why not me? Have you been saying, it always happens this way? Have you been saying, I cannot rest until the world changes? These little sentences may seem private and powerless, but they are seeds. They are not merely comments. They are creative movements. The subconscious does not dismiss your inner speech as idle. It receives the feeling behind it. If the feeling is fear, it receives fear. If the feeling is completion, it receives completion. If the feeling is belonging, it receives belonging. The deep does not argue, it builds. It takes your inner conversation as instruction, because that conversation reveals what you assume to be true. This is why words alone are not enough. A man may repeat beautiful phrases while inwardly speaking another language. He may say aloud, I am fulfilled, while inwardly saying, this will never happen. Which does the deep? It receives the state. It receives the conversation believed. It receives the feeling accepted. Therefore, do not merely put new words upon an old state. Let the words arise from the new state. Speak inwardly as one who already lives there. If you already lived inside your new reality, how would you speak to yourself tonight? Would you say, I wonder if I will ever arrive? No, that is the voice of distance. Would you say, I must force everything to change? That is the voice of struggle. Would you say, I am still the old self, but I hope to become new? No, that is still postponement. You would speak more quietly, more simply, more naturally. You might say, I am here now. You might say, this is the state I live from. You might say, the old story is no longer my home. You might say, I sleep as the one who belongs. You might say, I wake inside my new reality. You might say, it is already accepted within me. These sentences do not need to be shouted. They do not need to be forced. They should feel like the speech of someone returning to his own house, natural, quiet, familiar. That is why I often say that naturalness is the secret sign of possession. When the inner conversation becomes natural, the new reality is no longer distant. It has begun to be inhabited. Do not let the old voice narrate the new life. The old voice may come tonight. It may come softly, saying, but remember what happened. It may come as worry, saying, but what if tomorrow proves otherwise? It may come as false wisdom, saying, be realistic. It may come as self-protection, saying, do not assume too much, or you may be hurt. But I tell you, much that men call realism is only old fear, wearing a respectable coat. It is not realism to keep repeating a state that imprisons you. It is not wisdom to let yesterday dictate tomorrow. It is not safety to remain loyal to a self you have outgrown. When the old voice speaks, do not wrestle it. If you fight it, you may give it too much life. Instead, recognize it. That is the old narrator. Then return to the new conversation, not angrily, not with panic, as one who knows where he lives now. The old voice says, nothing has changed. The new conversation says, the cause has changed. The old voice says, you are still waiting. The new conversation says, I live from acceptance. The old voice says, this is not real. The new conversation says, it is real in consciousness, and consciousness is cause. The old voice says, you are not there yet. The new conversation says, I am learning to inhabit it now. This is practical. This is usable. This is the bridge in speech. Each time you refuse the old narration and speak from the new state, you shift the inner world. You stop feeding the old identity. You give the subconscious a different instruction. Change the conversation, and you change the world that answers. Now, let us look at the morning. The morning is often when the old conversation returns most quickly. A man wakes, and before he has fully opened his eyes, the old narrator begins. Here we are again. The same life, the same problem, the same burden, the same uncertainty. If he listens, the old state is restored before his feet touch the floor. But if he is wise, he catches the first sentence. He does not fight the morning. He changes the inner speech. He says, no, I do not wake as the old self. I wake inside my new reality. Even if he says it softly, even if the old world still appears, he has begun differently. And the beginning matters. What you say within upon waking shapes the door through which you enter the day. What you say within before sleep shapes the seed given to the night. What you say within when evidence appears determines whether you return to the old world or remain in the new. Inner speech is not decoration, it is direction. Your inner conversation is the language of the reality you occupy. Now, perhaps you have lived for a long time with a harsh inner voice. Perhaps it has criticized you, delayed you, frightened you, or named you according to old wounds. Do not now hate yourself for having heard it. That voice was learned. It is not the eternal voice of the I am. It is a habit of state, and habits of state can be replaced. You replace them not by violence, but by new loyalty. The new inner conversation must be spoken as one speaks truth, not as one tries to make truth. This is subtle. If you repeat a sentence to force reality, the sentence still carries strain. But if you speak from the assumption that the state is already yours, the sentence carries rest. The same words can come from two different worlds. I am loved, spoken from desperation, may still feel like pleading. I am loved, spoken from assumption, feels like remembering. I am free, spoken from fear, may sound like escape. I am free, spoken from assumption, feels like fact. I am in my new reality, spoken to force the world, may feel anxious. I am in my new reality, spoken from occupancy, feels like coming home. The words matter, but the state behind the words matters more. Speak inwardly as one who already lives there. Let us practice this in a way the body can receive. As you listen, imagine the old self beginning its old conversation. Perhaps it says, I do not know if this will work. Do not scold it. Do not argue for an hour. Simply let the new self speak. I do not need to know how. Let that be enough. The old self says, what if tomorrow is the same? The new self says, tomorrow is born from the state I sleep in. Let that be enough. The old self says, I still feel the old fear. The new self says, an old feeling may pass through me. It does not name me. Let that be enough. The old self says, I am not there yet. The new self says, I am learning to live from there now. Let that be enough. This is not a debate, it is a change of narrator. Do not let the old voice narrate the new life. If the old voice narrates, it will turn every new movement into an old meaning. A new opportunity will be called danger. A quiet interval will be called failure. A delay will be called denial. A beginning will be called too small. A feeling of peace will be called foolish. But if the new voice narrates, everything begins to serve the new reality. A delay becomes part of the bridge. A silence becomes a place to remain loyal to assumption. A small change becomes evidence of inner movement. A peaceful night becomes creation. A new thought becomes a door. Change the conversation, and you change the world that answers. Now, I want you to notice that the new conversation is not always full of grand statements. Often it is very ordinary, because true possession is ordinary to the one who possesses. The new self may simply say, of course, it is natural. This belongs to me. I am allowed to rest. I know who I am. The old story is done. I do not return. I live from the end. These little inward statements, when felt as true, are powerful. They reshape the inner atmosphere. The old conversation exhausts the body. It is full of argument. It circles the same concerns. It prepares for disappointment. It speaks as though the future were an enemy. The new conversation relaxes the body. It does not need so many words. It has authority. It speaks less because it knows more. It says, I am, and rests. Now this is especially important before sleep. The last inner conversation of the night is carried into the deep. If you let the old voice speak until sleep takes you, you hand the old world to the subconscious again. But if you gently replace that voice with the new, if you let the last inward words belong to completion, belonging, certainty, and the new reality, then sleep receives a different instruction. So tonight, as you approach sleep, do not rehearse the old conversations. Do not replay what was said, what should have been said, what might be said tomorrow. Do not argue with absent people in the temple of your own mind. Do not use the sacred borderland of sleep to continue old disputes. That is how men keep old worlds alive. They think the conversation is private, but imagination is creative, and the body responds, and the subconscious receives. Instead, give the night the conversation of the new reality. Speak inwardly as one who already lives there. If a person in your mind speaks against the new state, revise the conversation. Hear them differently. Hear them speak with kindness. Hear them say what would be true if your new reality were accepted. Or, if no person is needed, hear your own voice inwardly saying, I am already there. I sleep as the new self. I wake inside my new reality. Let the conversation become short, calm, and final. The deep loves simplicity. It does not need long speeches. It receives feeling. Therefore, choose words that carry the state. Choose words you can believe enough to rest in. Do not choose words that make the mind fight. Choose words that open the body. Choose words that feel like belonging. Perhaps tonight your new conversation is simply this, I am safe now. Then let it be. Repeat it softly, not to force safety, but to, I am safe now. Let the body respond. Perhaps it is, I belong to the new reality. Let it be. I belong to the new reality. Let the heart soften. Perhaps it is, the old story is no longer my home. Let it be. The old story is no longer my home. Let the shoulders release. Perhaps it is, I wake inside my new reality. Let it be. I wake inside my new reality. Let the night receive it. Your inner conversation is the language of the reality you. Now, there is another form of inner speech that is not made of clear words. It is the silent meaning you give to yourself. A man may not say, I am unworthy, but he may feel it in the way he apologizes inwardly for wanting more. A woman may not say, I am unwanted, but she may feel it in the way she interprets every delay. Another may not say, nothing changes, but he may carry the dull mood of inevitability. These are conversations too. The subconscious hears them. Therefore, change not only the words, but the meaning. Let the meaning of yourself change. Let the inner tone say, I am one for whom life opens. Let the tone say, I am one who is received. Let the tone say, I am one who belongs. Let the tone say, I am already living from the end. Then the words you use will be natural expressions of that tone. Do not let the old voice narrate the new life. It may try once more tonight. As the body becomes heavy, it may whisper, "But what about tomorrow?" Let the new voice answer, "Tomorrow is not my master. My state is first." It may whisper, "But what about the evidence?" Let the new voice answer, "The senses report what was. I live from what is becoming." It may whisper, "But what if I fail?" Let the new voice answer, "I return to the state. I do not condemn myself. I persist." This is how you keep the inner world clean before sleep. Not by perfect silence, but by right conversation. Not by having no thoughts, but by refusing old identification. Not by fighting every sentence, but by choosing the voice that belongs to the new state. Change the conversation, and you change the world that answers. Now I want you to imagine that your mind is a room at night. In the old days, many voices may have gathered there. The voice of fear, the voice of delay, the voice of unworthiness, the voice of old evidence, the voice of other people's judgments, the voice of memory. They sat in the chairs of your inner room and spoke as though they owned the place. And perhaps you listened because you did not know you were the host. But tonight you remember, this is your inner house. You may decide who speaks here. You may decide which voice is allowed to remain. You may decide that the old narrator is no longer given the chair by the fire. You may decide that the new self speaks now. And the new self does not need to shout to be heard. It speaks with calm authority. It says, "This room belongs to the new reality." The old arguments may leave. The old predictions may leave. The old names may leave. I live here now. Feel that. I live here now. Not someday, now. Not if proof comes, now. Not after the old world agrees. Reality becomes real to the one who lives from it. And inner conversation is one way you live from it. So tonight, live from it in speech. Speak inwardly as one already there. Speak from the room you have entered. Speak from the identity you are giving to sleep. Do not let the old voice come into the new house and describe it as though it were still the old one. If it tries, smile inwardly and return to the chosen voice. The old voice says, "This is impossible." The new voice says, "All things are possible to imagination." The old voice says, "You have been this way too long." The new voice says, "A state can be changed now." The old voice says, "The world has not changed yet." The new voice says, "The world follows the state." The old voice says, "Ask again if it is real." The new voice says, "I enter by acceptance." Let the new voice speak fewer words, but truer words. Let it become the language of your night. Let it become the final conversation before sleep. Now, as you listen, let your inner speech slow down. You do not need to think quickly. You do not need to solve. You do not need to explain. Let the words become simple and heavy with feeling. I am already inside my new reality. I speak from completion. I do not narrate delay. I do not narrate fear. I do not narrate lack. I do not narrate unworthiness. I speak from belonging. I speak from ease. Let these sentences become softer now. Not mechanical, not forced. Let one or two remain. The one that feels most natural. The one that opens the body. The one that lets the breath descend. Perhaps it is only, "I belong." Perhaps it is only, "It is done." Perhaps it is only, "I wake inside my new reality." Let it be simple. The old self needed many words because it was uncertain. The new self can speak with few because it knows. Your inner conversation is the language of the reality you occupy. So choose the language of the new reality tonight. Choose the language of completion. Choose the language of ease. Choose the language of certainty. Choose the language of belonging. Speak inwardly as one who already lives there. Do not let the old voice narrate the new life. Change the conversation, and you change the world that answers. And as sleep draws nearer, let the last conversation be not with fear, not with memory, not with yesterday, not with old evidence, but with the new self. Let the new self whisper you into sleep. Let it say, "You are already there." Let it say, "The old story is finished." Let it say, "Rest now. The state has been chosen." Let it say, "Morning will meet the one who slept in the new reality." And then let even the words fade. For when the words fade, the state remains. And the state, carried into sleep, becomes the silent language from which tomorrow begins to answer. Now, as the inner conversation begins to change, as the old voice grows quieter and the new state begins to speak within you, I want to give you one sentence for the night. One simple sentence, not complicated, not heavy, not difficult to remember. A sentence you may write, a sentence you may repeat, a sentence you may carry into sleep, as one carries a small lamp through a dark passage. I wake inside my new reality. Let it come slowly. I wake inside my new reality. Do not hurry it. Do not make it a task. Do not treat it as a charm or a superstition. The sentence is not magic by itself. Words spoken without state are only sounds passing through the mind. But when a sentence carries you into a state, when it gathers your feeling and directs it toward the end, then it becomes useful. It becomes a door. It becomes a little bridge. It becomes a way of entering. Let the sentence become a doorway. I wake inside my new reality. Do not repeat to force. Repeat to enter. This is most important. Do not repeat to force. Repeat to enter. If you repeat with strain, you are still outside, trying to break the door down. If you repeat with fear, you are still asking whether the sentence will work. If you repeat as one begging the night to change you, you remain in the state of not yet. But if you repeat gently as one stepping into the feeling the sentence implies, then the words begin to carry you. They begin to move you from the old world into the new state. I wake inside my new reality. What does this sentence imply? It implies that the new reality is not far. It implies that the night is a passage. It implies that sleep receives a new identity and gives it back as morning. It implies that you are not waiting for years, not pleading with time, not asking the old world to certify the new one. It implies that the state is entered now, in consciousness, and that morning must begin to answer it. I wake inside my new reality. Feel the first word, I. Not another, not the person you envy, not the one you imagine to be more fortunate, more chosen, more prepared, more loved, more worthy. I, the creative center, the awareness of being, the one who says I am before every state, the one who has worn many garments and yet remains greater than them all. When you say I, do not think of the old identity alone. Feel the deeper I, the I that can choose, the I that can assume, the I that can enter a state and make it home. I wake inside my new reality. Feel the word wake. It is not merely the opening of the eyes, it is an awakening of identity. To wake is to rise from one state into another. To wake is to stop being hypnotized by yesterday's name. To wake is to come into consciousness of what you are now choosing to be. When you say I wake, you are not speaking only of morning. You are speaking of awakening within the state before morning comes. I wake inside my new reality. Feel the word inside. This is the secret. You are not looking at the new reality from afar. You are not standing outside the house. You are not waiting at the gate. You are inside. You speak from within. You feel from within. You belong from within. The new reality is not a picture on the wall that you admire. It is a room you enter. It is a state you inhabit. It is a home in consciousness. I wake inside my new reality. Feel the words, new reality. Not a repaired old one. Not the old world with a few improvements. Not the same identity dressed with prettier words. A new reality. A new state. A new inner atmosphere. A new self. A new way of breathing, expecting, interpreting, receiving, and being. This new reality is not first in the outer world. It is first in consciousness. And what is made real in consciousness, if accepted, must take form. I wake inside my new reality. Now let the sentence become more personal. If the old world has been one of fear, then this sentence means, I wake inside the reality where I am safe. If the old world has been one of waiting, it means, I wake inside the reality where I already belong. If the old world has been one of lack, it means, I wake inside the reality where supply is natural. If the old world has been one of rejection, it means, I wake inside the reality where I am chosen. If the old world has been one of confusion, it means, I wake inside the reality where I know who I am. You do not need to name all of this aloud. The sentence can hold it. I wake inside my new reality. One small sentence can carry a whole state if you let it. A wedding ring may be small, but it implies a union. A key may be small, but it implies a house. A letter may be small, but it can imply a life changed. So a sentence may be small and yet imply a world. This sentence implies that you are no longer sleeping as the old self. It implies that the night is receiving a new identity. It implies that morning is not your master. It implies that you have entered within. Let the sentence become a doorway. Now, there are supporting sentences too. You may use them like soft companions, not to make the mind busy, but to deepen the state. My new reality is natural to me now. Let that be heard. My new reality is natural to me now. This sentence removes the feeling of strangeness. Many fail not because they cannot imagine, but because the fulfilled state feels foreign. They hold it for a moment and then say, "This does not feel like me." Of course, it may not feel like the old self. It belongs to the new one. But as you repeat, "My new reality is natural to me now," you teach the body and mind to stop treating it as a stranger. You invite the new state to become familiar. And what feels natural must find expression. My new reality is natural to me now. Again softly, my new reality is natural to me now. Do not repeat to force, repeat to enter. Another sentence, I sleep as the new self. This is very powerful before sleep. I sleep as the new self, not as the one who is trying to become, not as the one who is hoping to change, not as the one begging the morning for proof. I sleep as the new self. The identity is taken first. The state is occupied first. The night receives the new self first. Then morning follows. I sleep as the new self. Let this sentence relax you. The new self is not frantic. The new self is not arguing with the old reality. The new self is not digging through evidence for permission. The new self rests. The new self belongs. The new self sleeps in the end. I sleep as the new self. Another sentence. The old world fades as the new state rises. Let that move through the mind like a slow tide. The old world fades as the new state rises. You do not need to force the old world to vanish. You do not need to wrestle with it in the dark. You do not need to curse it, fight it, or tear it down. The old world fades as the new state rises. When the sun rises, darkness does not need to be beaten, it withdraws. In the same way, when the new state rises in consciousness, the old world begins to lose authority. It may still appear for a while, but it is fading because it is no longer being fed. The old world fades as the new state rises. Again, the old world fades as the new state rises. I wake inside my new reality. This is the sentence for tonight. You may write it by hand before you sleep, not as a ritual of fear, not as a bargain with God, but as a simple declaration of state. The hand writes what the inner man accepts. You may write it once, you may write it several times. Let the words be slow. Let the writing itself feel like entering. I wake inside my new reality. Let the paper receive it. Let the hand feel it. Let the mind become still with it. And if you do not write it, you may simply repeat it inwardly, quietly, slowly, with the breath, not in a rush, not as though the number of repetitions were the power. The power is the state. The repetition is only a doorway. I wake inside my new reality. With the inhale, perhaps feel, I wake. With the exhale, feel inside my new reality. Again, I wake inside my new reality. Again, I wake inside my new. Bring it back gently. I wake inside my new reality. If the old thought comes, let the sentence become the doorway again. I wake inside my new reality. If doubt comes, do not debate with it. Enter through the sentence. I wake inside my new reality. If the body feels old tension, let the sentence soften the body. I wake inside my new reality. The sentence is not there to make you fight. It is there to help you enter. Let the sentence become a doorway. A doorway must be. Do not stand before it, admiring the words. Enter the state they imply. If you say, I wake inside my new reality, then feel yourself inside. Feel the old world outside the door. Feel the new reality as your inward dwelling. Feel that you are not waiting in a hallway. You are already within the room. The sentence has brought you there. Now rest there. I wake inside my new reality. What would it feel like if this were true? Not as a question to strain over, but as a gentle invitation. What would the body feel? Perhaps softer. What would the breath feel? Perhaps lower and easier. What would the mind feel? Perhaps less noisy. What would the heart feel? Perhaps quietly relieved. What would tomorrow feel like? Perhaps not threatening, but open. Let those feelings come naturally. They do not need to be large. They only need to be real enough to rest in. I wake inside my new reality. Now pair it with another. My new reality is natural to me now. I wake inside my. I sleep as the new self. I wake inside my new reality. The old world fades as the new state rises. I wake inside my new reality. Let the rhythm become slow, almost like a cradle. Do not turn it into a chant of strain. Let it become the movement of sleep. The words come, the breath moves, the body softens, the old world fades, the new state rises. I wake inside my new reality. Perhaps after a time, the sentence shortens by itself. That is good. The purpose of the sentence is to bring you to the state. Once you are in the state, the words may fade. The words fade, but the state remains. Do not be afraid if the words fade. Do not pull yourself back from sleep to repeat perfectly. The words are not the treasure. The state is the treasure. If the sentence has carried you into the feeling of being the new self, if it has helped you rest inside the new reality, then let the words dissolve. Let sleep take the feeling. Let the deep receive the state. The words fade, but the state remains. This is how you use a sentence wisely. You do not worship the words, you let them lead you to the inner experience. Once the door has opened, you do not cling to the handle, you enter the room. Once the lamp has guided you to the bed, you do not stare at the lamp all night, you rest. The sentence is the lamp, the state is the place of rest. I wake inside my new reality. Let it bring you to rest. Now, if the old voice tries to interrupt and says, but tomorrow may be the same, answer with the sentence, I wake inside my new reality. If it says, you are only imagining, answer, my new reality is natural to me now. If it says, you are still the old self, answer, I sleep as the new self. If it says, the old world is still here, answer, the old world fades as the new state rises. And then return to quiet. Do not argue endlessly. The sentence is enough because the sentence carries the state. Let it interrupt the old pattern. Let it gather the mind. Let it turn you inward. Let it become a gentle authority. I wake inside my new reality. This sentence also prepares the morning. It gives the deep mind an instruction. Do not wake me as the old self. Do not return me to the old name. Do not let the first breath of morning be captured by yesterday's fear. I wake inside my new reality. It is not merely a hope for tomorrow. It is a command of identity given to the night. The night receives what you feel yourself to be. So feel yourself to be the one who wakes inside the new reality, not the one searching for it, not the one asking if it came, not the one measuring proof, the one inside, inside the state, inside the assumption, inside the new name, inside the new world. I wake inside my new reality. Now let the sentence begin to slow. I wake inside my new reality. Again, let each part rest in you. I wake. This is awakening. Inside. This is occupancy. My new reality. This is belonging. The sentence has no strain in it. It does not say, I try to reach. It does not say, I hope to enter. It does not say, I beg the world to change. It says, I wake inside. It speaks from arrival. That is why it is powerful. It is the language of the end. Do not repeat to force. Repeat to enter. Now let the body agree. With each repetition, let the body feel more inside the new reality. The face softer, the breath lower, the shoulders heavier, the chest calmer, the stomach released, the hands open, the whole body becoming the body of the one who belongs there. I wake inside my new reality. My new reality is natural to me now. I sleep as the new self. The old world fades as the new state rises. I wake inside my new reality. The words may grow quieter now. They may begin. You are not failing. You are entering. The mind is passing from words into state. The conscious is releasing the sentence into the deep. Let it happen. The words fade, but the state remains. Feel the state that remains. A quiet certainty, a soft belonging, a sense that you are no longer outside, a new identity lying down in the night, a morning already being instructed, a reality already being entered in consciousness. If only one phrase remains as sleep comes, let it be this. I wake inside my new reality. Again, softer. I wake inside my new reality. Again, almost whispered inwardly. I wake inside my new reality. Now let it become feeling. Let it become breath. Let it become the atmosphere of the room. Let it become the last inner movement before sleep. Let it become the seed placed gently into the deep. You are not repeating to force. You are repeating to enter. You are not begging, you are inhabiting the state. You are not waiting for proof. You are accepting identity. You are not sleeping as the old self. You sleep as the new self. And when the words fade, the state remains. I wake inside my new reality.